Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063, The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live today from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Boy, we had a press conference today, Ian. How about that from Brian Callahan?
Yeah, a little spicy, I guess.
You know, I try to come up all day with what are the talking points that we're going to have on the show. We break down the grid. All these different things. Have all these Will Levis topics I want to get to, and we will today. And then Brian Callahan gets asked a question, apparently by Nick Suss of the Tennessean, about whether or not the Titans are soft. And Brian Callahan went full on Tony Soprano. I mean, I'm not going to be one to sit here and say, oh, the language. Even though I would prefer my 6-day-old not hear that. I would prefer that not be the case. But it is what it is. But I want to start on that Callahan press conference. If you heard it, good for you. If not, search Titans and Soft on Twitter, and you'll hear every single word Callahan had to say. And my big takeaway is not exactly from the soft answer, though the soft answer is a part of it. But it was the press conference as a whole. This is a big boy press conference. If you remember a couple of years ago, Vrabel had a similar big boy press conference when he decided to bench Marcus Mariota. Ian, if you'll remember, I asked Vrabel this long question about how Mariota could be a playoff game winning quarterback, a Pro Bowl alternate quarterback. And now he's on the bench. And Vrabel just brushed it off and said, I guess I'm just not a very good coach. Because he knew that saying anything else was going to make it a much bigger deal. Which takes me to Callahan today. I thought the press conference, and again, it will be discussed about, it will be remembered for, the water cooler talk will be about the cursing, and it will be about Brian Callahan standing up for the players, which is what he was doing when asked if they were soft. And whether or not they are soft, I think is also worth discussing. I'm not saying they are soft, but we can discuss it. But Brian Callahan did that to stand up for his guys and also probably a little bit of a personal shot at his own coaching when you call them soft or insinuate that they could be soft or whatever. But the press conference as a whole is exactly why this organization is a complete and total clown show. I understand that people don't always tell the truth, whether it's Bill Belichick, who is a total a-hole, or whether it's Brian Callahan, who's not. Brian Callahan's a good guy. My girlfriend and I were vacationing in the Bahamas this summer. We ran into Brian Callahan and his family. Brian Callahan's a good guy. But that doesn't change the fact that sometimes coaches don't tell the truth. The difference is, all of a sudden, the Titans as an organization have seemed to do a 180 on almost everything. We can start with the quarterback, whom they praised incessantly. Remember Brian Callahan said on Taylor Lewan's podcast, this is a big reason why I took this job was because of Will Levis. And I believe he can be everything. And he did the athletic football show and he talked about how great Will Levis is. And he said this, that, the other, that. Today he was asked about it. He just brushed it off. Said, I'm not worried about, what was said in the offseason. Brian Callahan today talking about all I'm really worried about. I'm not worried about the future. All I'm really worried about is winning the game on Sunday. The Titans are mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. So winning the game on Sunday, unless his job security is tied to finishing strong, which I don't know if it is or it isn't, but the game on Sunday means absolutely nothing. And he knows that. And I find it funny because, again, the Titans have been eliminated from the playoffs. So if you're sitting there saying, well, we got to win Indy, got to win Indy, got to win Indy, got to win Indy. Well, what happened in October when you traded Ernest Jones and DeAndre Hopkins and you said, well, the Lions are the model and we want to be like that and we have to make decisions for the long term of the franchise. And today you get asked questions about the long-term ramifications for the franchise and what this means for Will Levis and now all of a sudden we don't want to talk about the future? When 2 months ago you were trading away DeAndre Hopkins and Ernest Jones and because we had to worry about the future. So now we're not allowed to talk about the future. And I can go on and on and on I laughed out loud when I was listening to that press conference and I heard the question about, is your team soft? Which again, I don't know where this came from. But the question was asked, is your team soft? Callahan said, you want to get me going? And then he just went off F-bomb here, S-word there. And Koharski followed up with, well, Jarvis Brownlee said a couple weeks ago it was too cold in Washington. And I laughed out loud because I'd kind of forgotten about all that, but it is true. You're trying to argue our team's not soft. I'll tell you what. And it's like, well, Johnny said that it was too cold for him to play on Sunday. Kind of a reminder. And when I thought about the Jarvis Brownlee, it's too cold, you know what it reminded me of? Do you remember the offseason and training camp? Brian Callahan said the reason why Will Levis and Calvin Ridley weren't connecting was because it was too hot. So we can say, oh, well, it's too hot to play well in training camp. We make excuses and have Jim Wyatt go back and edit his story when Will Levis throws a ball into the lake in OTAs. Every day the offense stunk up the joint. We had to hear about how Denard's defense is a great defense. But now that push comes to shove, we're not going to talk about anything except winning this meaningless game on Sunday against Indianapolis. I can't take that seriously. I cannot take this organization seriously. And Mr. Nice Guy, Brian Callahan, who excused every single thing that Will Levis did this offseason that was a sign that there may be an issue with the quarterback. The same people that completely ignored the fact that their unreliable right tackle, Nicholas Petit-Frere, a.k.a.
PT,
was going to be somebody that they would rely on this season. I can't take them seriously now. Now you want to do it at 180 and be Mr. Tough Guy and talk about how you're only worried about this game when 8 weeks ago you traded away your probably best wide receiver? That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. These are the same guys that signed Tyler Boyd and then got up in front of everybody and told us, Treylon Burks is a big part of this. And when Trevor Maddich, who, again, I think is more, I think he's probably more optimistic than he is pessimistic. You guys can make your call on that with Trevor from over the years. When Trevor calls out Treylon Burks at OTAs, it turns into every single person over there defending Treylon Burks and telling us how good he is. The Titans, it's all bull crap. It's been all bull crap. The ball didn't bounce our way. Bull crap. So, again, I don't care that Brian Callahan cursed in the press conference or showed some fire or stood up for his guys, and I'm not calling the Titans soft. I think there are certain players on the Titans that are soft, but I'm not calling the Titans soft. I know soft football teams that quit. I don't think the Titans quit. I think the Titans suck, and I think there's a difference between the two. But this idea that all of a sudden the Titans are going to pretend like, well, we shouldn't have to talk about the future right now because we don't want to. Or the fact that the Titans are going to say, well, it doesn't matter. We're tough. You told me that they couldn't complete passes in training camp because it was hot outside. Will Levis threw an interception on the first play of the 2-minute drill against the Seattle Seahawks. And I was expecting the coach to say, get out there and do it again. But not Mr. Sunshine, not Mr. Nice Guy. He just shrugged it off at training camp and said, we'll have plenty of more reps before they really count. The Titans talked a big game before the season. That's well documented. Whether it was Brinker, Amy, Carthon, Callahan, Levis, it doesn't matter. They all did it. And I think they believed what they were saying. I didn't believe what they were saying. Ian didn't believe what they were saying. Joe Dubin didn't believe what they were saying. But I think a lot of people believed it, and it's okay. But now don't do a 180 and all of a sudden tell me that you're worried about this meaningless Indianapolis game. You don't want to talk about anything else and then go crazy when somebody asks you if your team is soft. And be Mr. Tough Guy now. When, again, we couldn't complete passes in training camp because it was too hot. Again, we threw balls in the lake, and it was because we had a good defense. We threw an interception in the 2-minute drill. We'll get it figured out. It's all talk. And when it comes to the Titans, they never back any of it up. And then they expect you to give them the benefit of the doubt every time. You know why I didn't give them the benefit of the doubt this year with PT? Because last year I gave them the benefit of the doubt with Andre Dillard. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So Brian Callahan, talk. Everything was great. Sunshine, rainbows, toxic positivity, we called it. Now he gets up there and he's Mr. Tough Guy and he only wants to talk about this game and he's telling us he still believes in Will Levis, which again is just ridiculous. You do not bench your franchise quarterback if he is in fact your franchise quarterback. And they expect you to believe that. They expect me to believe that. And not only do they expect us to believe it, but they are entitled to us continuing to believe the bullcrap that comes out of their mouths. And that press conference was a perfect example of it. Worried about Indianapolis. You traded away half the team, or you tried to. You traded away. You sold 8 weeks ago. You're going to tell me you're worried about Indianapolis now? Give me a break. 615-737-1025. We're starting there. 615-737-1025. I was going to start on Levis today. And then I heard that Brian Callahan press conference that was just so disingenuous for a guy I like and a guy I believe genuinely is a nice guy. But don't give me this. I can't talk about the future. This isn't the right time to talk about the... Have you noticed that with the Titans? It's never the right time to talk about anything. It's never the right time. You ask a question about, hey, what do we think about the long term? Oh, no. It's not the right time to talk about this because we're getting ready to play Indianapolis in a completely meaningless game right now. So when is the right time to ask it? It's a joke. 615-737-1025. We're starting on that. Plus, did I say it was Nick Sussian that asked the soft question?
I'm not sure who you said it was.
So TD's told me it was Easton Freeze who asked the soft question. I'm going to give Easton Freeze some credit. I'm not a huge Easton Freeze guy. I'm not sure exactly where I feel like he sits in the pecking order in terms of, hey, the guys I expect to ask the questions. But I'll give him credit. He asked that question. And apparently it got Callahan all worked up today. And I do have a thought on that question and Callahan's response, which, again, was very uncharacteristic of Brian Callahan. We'll do it next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Those are my guys. That's right. They're probably listening to the show right now up in attics laughing about the Brian Callahan, whatever. Who knows? Probably up there listening to the show right now. And if you're listening to the show right now, I love you, Hiller. Hiller's Cash for the Holidays promotion is back, and they're giving away cash for the holidays with select purchases. Get a $500 Visa gift card when you buy select new HVAC systems or a new whole home generator. Or get a $250 Visa gift card when you buy a new tankless water heater. These deals are only available until the end of the year, and the end of the year is fast approaching. So schedule today by visiting happyhiller.com. Take advantage of Hiller's $99 drain cleaning this month, too, and there's no better time to take care of your business before the holiday guests arrive. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Hiller, call the Happy Face Truck today.
There are a lot of folks who think this team is soft physically and mentally. How would you respond to that idea?
I mean, you really want to get me going today? Yeah, I think, to be honest with you, I think it's complete and total bull, if you want my honest opinion. These guys are tough, man. They go after it every day. They play hard as hell. And there's at no point have we ever put on tape at any point this season that this is a soft football team. Like I can't even wrap my mind around how that would even be a conversation. I mean, just because we don't win games doesn't mean we're soft. These guys play their ass off. They play hard. They play physical. You can ask any team that plays against us that when they come off the field, they know they played us. Yeah, that makes me relatively angry that would be some presumption. That means you just don't watch the you don't do anything about it, that you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're looking at. So I won't stand for, I'm not going to stand for anybody calling this football team soft. I think that's so if there's opinions out there that feel that way, then they don't know anything about NFL football. So I'd like you to walk in there and call one of these guys soft and see what happens. This is not a soft football team at all, mentally or physically. And I think one of the things mentally that's really been impressive about the team is that the way that they keep fighting through the way that this season has gone. They've not shown at any point that they're not up to the task. They come out every day and work. They have, I'm really, you're going to really get me going now. These guys come out here and they do everything possible to win games. And if there's any assumption anywhere that's outside of this building, again, we don't focus on all those things, but there's no possible explanation to say that this team is soft any way, shape, or form, mentally or physically. And the way that they go about their work it's insulting to me, to them, to everyone that works here. So I'm not that no chance ever in hell would I ever admit that to be the case, and neither would anybody in this locker room. So you can kind of shove that one right up your, to be honest. So
I was as shocked as everybody else, but when Callahan's just, again, this is mild-mannered Brian Callahan. This is not Mike Vrabel. Like when Vrabel had that, because this kind of reminded me, this was about this time last year, right, Ian? When Vrabel did because it sucks to lose Gentry.
Yeah, I think it was about this time, yeah.
It was, because it sucks to lose. Again, you guys know how much respect I have for Gentry at the Tennessean. And first of all, Gentry absolutely nuked Amy last week in what was a masterpiece of a column. But Gentry told me that the reason he asked, Vrabel said in that game, he's like, even though there was nothing to play for, Vrabel was like, there's a lot of reasons that we need to win. So Gentry's like, oh, a lot of reasons we need to win. What are those reasons? Like a very fair point. And then Vrabel, did the it sucks to lose or whatever. Then was that when John Glennon started asking about Trey Avery and Vrabel was just like, cause it bleeping sucks to lose, Gentry.
I think so, yeah.
So this, I believe, was our it sucks to lose Gentry moment of the year from Brian Callahan, which I was not expecting. Then again, a lot of things in life happen and in the football season that I don't expect. So again, it is not the end of the world. But I do wonder this. Who called him soft? Now, I know Mike Herndon wrote it at Paul Kaharski's website in a column that dropped like an hour ago. But I don't know how many people read that column up and to this point. Ian, have you read the Mike Herndon column at paulkaharski.com?
I have not, no.
So, if this was Gentry's column last week, everybody was talking about that for a day and a half. Everybody knows what they're talking about. When Trevor criticized Treylon Burks, everybody heard it. I know when somebody says something and everybody hears it. Why? Because sometimes that person who says it and everything hears and everybody gets pissed off about is oftentimes me. So I know what that's like. Again, today I was just on the phone reading the Mike Herndon piece, and I got no beef with Herndon. I got no beef with what Herndon wrote. And I'm not sitting here telling you like nobody reads Herndon, because I'm not saying that nobody does. But this thing came out an hour ago. This is like Brian Callahan is, what's the Gundy? The guy from Oklahoma State who's got the
Mike Gundy.
Yeah, he got the newspaper up
yeah.
in the press conference, with the I'm a man. Like, is that what he was mad about? Where did the question come from? The Easton Freeze asked, is this team soft? This is an entire press conference about Will Levis. And then it's just, is your team soft? Is there something I missed? Is there something I missed where this is now a big discussion point? Because Callahan, I mean, he was ready to roll. Can we play that cut again? Again, this is an entire press conference about Will Levis because they're benching the quarterback and everybody knows it. And Callahan knows he's going up to the podium to talk about Will Levis because he's benched the quarterback. He knows he's going to be asked, what did Amy say when you asked her about it? And does this mean that you've given up on Levis forever? And all of those questions. And all of a sudden he gets asked a question about them being soft. And it was like, again, he was ready to go.
There are a lot of folks who think this team is soft physically and mentally. How would you respond to that idea?
I mean, you really want to get me going today? Yeah, I think, to be honest with you, I think it's complete and total bull. If you want my honest opinion, these guys are tough, man. They go after it.
So again, now I just listened to that question closer, and Easton was like, there are a lot of people that think this team is soft. So maybe that, because when he did the "you want to get me going here," that was Callahan's way of taking the time to say, okay, I'm doing this. So maybe it isn't something, but Herndon did write it at paulkaharski.com. And I'm not sure it's like inarguable, if that makes sense. Here's what Herndon wrote, quote, "While we're on coaching," this is paulkaharski.com, Herndon made the case that the Titans should clean house, which is a sentiment that I agree with. "While we're on coaching, I think something must be said about how mentally weak this team appears to be. We've heard comments from Peter Skoronski early in the season talking about the team's in Washington because it was cold outside. It was 42 degrees at kickoff," as Herndon notes. There is a certain softness to this team that hasn't been there in recent years. While the players absolutely bear some of the responsibility there, it is often said that a team takes on the personality of its head coach. And while I'm not saying Callahan is soft necessarily, that sounds like one of those Chris Sanders. I say this respectfully, but while I'm not saying Callahan is soft necessarily, he's certainly shown some fire on the sidelines at times this season. I do think his team's culture permits that softness to exist in ways that it wasn't allowed under Vrabel's leadership. But is that like is that what the soft, is that where this is coming from? Because again, I don't think the Titans are soft. I think the Titans lack leadership, and I think the Titans stink. I think it's a poorly constructed team. I don't think they're incredibly well coached. And again, I think they lack leader. Now, maybe that's the softness because Derrick Henry's not here. And I've said, I think Jeffrey Simmons is soft. When you make $23.5 million a year and you can't put your phone down for 5 minutes, that you have to go to Buck and scream at him at training camp, that's soft. And I will say this about Simmons because I have listened to his press conferences over the year. I think he's been humbled this year. And I think he's callousing a little bit, which I like. So I'll say individual players are soft. But the team, again, I don't think the team is soft. I just think the team sucks. I think PT is soft. I think there's something to this Snead thing, even though they deny it to the hills. But I don't think the team's soft. I don't think Tony Pollard's soft. I don't think Levis is soft. I don't think Skoronski, who I don't think is very good, I don't think he's soft. I don't think Spears is soft. I don't think Chig is soft, even though he can't catch sometimes. I don't think NWI is soft, Ridley. So I don't think it's a soft team. But I was just surprised by how big, it's like, did I miss something here? Is there a bunch of commentary that this team is so soft and that this is, or did Easton just ask it out of nowhere and Callahan went off? Because again, Callahan was defending the team. That's what he's going to say. He's going to tell people, hey, I've stood up for you. They called you soft. And no matter what happens to this team, I know the 90 guys in here are not soft. Bobby Cox out of the dugout. I also think Callahan was defending himself because when you say a team is soft, especially in comparison to the team under Mike Vrabel, that is a shot at the head coach. But I'm trying to figure out where all this came from, for whatever that's worth. 615-737-1025. We are to your phones. We got a lot of phones on this next. Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game.
When I said it was cold in Washington.
Yeah, I don't think that has anything to do with him being soft. I don't know if you've watched Jarvis play, but he's a tough son of a on top of it. So whether he likes cold weather or not, that's not really our problem. I think he played pretty damn hard everywhere he's been and every game he's been out there. So yeah, I don't take too much stock into that.
Brian Callahan's like, yeah, Jarvis Brownlee Jr., he's not soft, even though he said guys were affected by the fact that it was 42 degrees at kickoff at Washington. This is so weird. All of this, this whole soft thing. Are they soft? Are they not? And, we gotta win the game against Indianapolis this week. We gotta win it. Gotta win against Indy this week. What a freaking clown show. This organization is such a clown show. And you can literally start at the top and go all the way down. You start with the owner, who the columnist in the local paper absolutely nuked last year. My favorite was the line in there that Gentry had, that he could see Amy cleaning house and then sending Will Levis out to the media to go talk about it. Like, that is a burn. So that's where the owner is. The president of football operations, we don't know if he's in charge or if he's not in charge, but he told us that they have an AI model that can help them determine injuries because some smart guy he went to school with used it to detect cancer. And then they went out and signed a corner, traded for a corner with a 3rd-round pick and spent $25 million. And the guy's played 5 games this year, even though all the other teams around the league were worried that that guy was hurt. So that's, ridiculous. Then there's the general manager who just says the ball didn't bounce their way every time they lose by 50. And now there's the head coach that is, we play every game. Okay, well, if the team is not soft, then do they just suck? Are they not coached well? Are they not? It's just such a clown show. And it gets more ridiculous by the week. And I am starting to get convinced by the people out there. Last year, I did not let the local media group think. I did not let that convince me that there weren't going to be changes. Because with Vrabel, he can't hide his true feelings. I knew something was going down. But I'm starting to let the local media group think kind of sway me that Amy may bring everybody back. And if she does, I have no idea how in the world they're going to survive an offseason of not getting the benefit of the doubt from anybody, except for apparently our midday show and Kaharski. Phone lines driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com, 615-737-1025. One texter says, let Rand cook, they said, and we Titan fans now know we are suffering from food poisoning, and the Titans team is softer than the pillows at the airport Hilton. Eddie George's bunch at TSU is tougher and better than the Titans. I'll have to take your word for it. I haven't watched a single down of TSU football this year, though I'm great. Though I'm sure they're great. But I haven't watched a single down of TSU football. I don't think the Titans are soft. I think players on the team are soft. Like, I think PT is soft. I'm sorry. The guy is built like a first-round top 10 tackle, and he just will not pass protect. Like, he just won't do it. And I think he's soft. I don't think Dylan Radins is soft. I don't think Daniel Brunskill is soft. I'm trying to think of guys over the years where I'm like, yeah, this guy, what he's been through, how can you say this guy?
Yeah, they all play through a lot of injuries and they play through adversity. A lot of them play through stuff.
I don't think Landry is soft. I don't think Hooker is soft, though Hooker does get hurt a lot. I don't think Hooker is soft. So I don't think they're soft, but at the same time, I think they stink. One texter said, Jared, you are a pro. Better see where this is going. I'll be careful here. Jared, you're a pro. You called out the poor Titans players from the get-go, and I agreed. Quarterback is 50% of the team, and Levis sucks. So did Ryan Tannehill. What is your QB choice of the future? Lord help us. That comes from John. John, we'll get to the quarterback in a little bit here. Again, everybody's throwing out the same names. Whether it's Sam Darnold or Shadur Sanders or Cam Ward or whomever. Everybody's throwing out the same names. I'll just say a couple of years ago, nobody thought that Matt Ryan would be available. A year before that, nobody thought that Carson Wentz would be available. Last year, I don't think a lot of people thought Kirk Cousins would be available or Russell Wilson. Well, I think people thought Russell Wilson would be available. They just thought he was washed. So this has a way of working itself out, the quarterback carousel. But at the same time, I don't have a choice for a quarterback because I don't think that matters right now. Like, I think what matters right now is to get these bozos running this team out of there. And that includes Amy. Again, you're not going to get Amy to sell the team, but get her out of the day-to-day meddling. Fire everybody, hire an experienced football person, and get out of it. And I heard Derek yesterday make the point, well, if Amy, if you guys think that Amy should stop meddling and you guys think that Amy is the problem, then why do you trust Amy to get it right? And my whole point would be, look, Amy's not selling the team, and she's probably got a 50-50 shot at getting it right. Maybe it's 33% and 66% chance of getting it wrong. I'll take my 33% than running it back with ball didn't bounce our way, Ran Carthon. Because the Titans, I said this last year, and I got called racist for it, and I know I'm not a racist, so I don't worry about this, but they're incompetent. They just say a bunch of crap, and then when it doesn't go well, they put their hands in the air and say, don't look at us. And today, that's what Brian Callahan did at his press conference. One texter said, Simmons is soft. I actually think this year has hardened Simmons up a little bit. If you listen to Simmons' press conferences, at the beginning of the year, it was all this bullcrap, right? I'm going to make fun of Caleb Williams' painted nails. Ha, ha, ha. Buck, you need to stop talking trash on social media. Ha, ha, ha. Nobody runs on the Tennessee Titans. And I heard stuff like that, and I thought, oh, Jesus, God. And this is your leader? Like, did Derrick Henry ever get up there and say, we can run the ball on everybody? Of course not. But Simmons has stopped doing that. If you listen to Simmons, it's not, these bold proclamations. It's not, you can hear the frustration. I think that, and I mean this with total sincerity, because I am hard on Simmons. I think Simmons has learned a lot about football, and I would maybe even argue life this season that he wasn't used to before. And I think he learned, hey, heaviest is the head that wears the crown. It was easier when you had Ryan Tannehill and Kevin Byard and Derrick Henry taking all the hard questions all the time for you. Now it's a little different. One texter says, I'm glad you're back in today. Even some of the media members are soft with this team. Yesterday, DVD was preaching how this is Rand's first year. Glad to hear someone speaking the truth. Okay. We got to talk about DVD yesterday, because I was listening, even though I was off. I mean, what are you supposed to do? Just sit there and not listen to the radio? But I was listening to them, and I was getting triggered yesterday. Some of the Ran Carthon commentary. Can I tell you what my favorite was yesterday, Ian? I don't know if you heard this.
No, I didn't.
So a caller called in, and I was leaving the grocery store when I heard this. You'd be shocked to know, become a familiar face at the grocery store here lately.
Uh-huh.
So I was leaving the grocery store, and a caller called in and said that he thinks that they should fire Rand. And Derek said, there are some people out there that think that. And Adam said, there are a lot of people out there that think that. And then Derek was like, well, you may be saying that based off of what you're seeing on the field. And I'm like, where else are we supposed to see it? Of course we're basing it off of what we see on the field. It's football. This goes back to Brian Callahan. I see the improvement. You guys don't see the improvement, but I see the improvement. It's like a daily thing. Boy, what a gong show this organization is. And what's so frustrating to me, I have no idea. If Rick Spielman were to come in here to be the general manager of the Titans, would he nail every single draft pick? Probably not. Would this team be a total disgrace the way it is now? No. I can tell you right now. Like, if you hired, and I know people don't, and they're not going to do this, and I'm not suggesting that, if you hire John Robinson, like if the Jets hire John Robinson, I'm going to tell you right now, they're not going to be a total disgrace. I'm just telling you. If you hire John Robinson, your team will not be a total disgrace. Will you win the Super Bowl? I don't know. Probably not. But you won't be a disgrace. They are a disgrace right now. And I am ready for this to end. More your phone, 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game.
What is the standard you hope to see in the final 3 games and a definition of what this team ends as?
Yeah, I think we're looking for down to down execution, looking for series to series, to where you can see the consistent play that allows us to put ourselves in position to win, and there's inconsistencies with turnovers. There's inconsistencies with the red zone offense and defense. And so those are all the things we're trying to tighten up, and play a better brand of football over the last 3 weeks against 3 divisional teams. And again, the divisional games matter and are things that we're trying to improve at a rapid rate. And the hope is that we can see that improvement over the course of the last 3 games.
I find that to be so disingenuous. And again, I know he's the coach, and what's the coach going to say? And every coach says, we're playing out the string for pride. And, very rarely do you have a coach that just gets up there and says, yeah, these games don't mean anything. we don't care. We're just getting ready to turn the page to next year. The Magic Johnson, I won't be here. They don't do that very often. But remember that Mike Vrabel's last game was against the Jacksonville Jaguars, a division team at home. It was a game that meant something if you were a rivalry person, because you had the ability to knock Jacksonville out of the playoffs by winning. The Titans did win, and Mike Vrabel still got fired. So when I hear this talk about the indie game, I'm like, okay. By the way, I'm rooting for Indianapolis, and I am rooting very hard for Indianapolis to win on Sunday, for whatever that is worth. One texter into the text line texted me and said, did you read Zack Lions' piece this morning about preaching patience with his organization? He had the audacity to say Rand was better than John Robinson. Somebody actually texted me a tweet from Zack Lions. He said, I've written an article that's going to likely hit 7,000 words soon about why patience is key for the Titans staff. I'm sick in the head and may need to check into rehab or something. To answer your question, no, I did not read what he had to say. Not that I wouldn't read it, but I just didn't read it. And look, Zack Lions is new to the big leagues. It's going to take a little bit of time for you to understand, okay, this is what you can do, what you can't do. I think sometimes, and I'm not calling him a homer, but I think a lot of his opinions sometimes can be very homerific. I think that is certainly one of them. And here's what I will say about the idea of preaching patience. Because Kaharski is very much not a homer, though I think he probably is when it comes to Chad Brinker, who talks to him. Kaharski is not a homer, but he talks about the need for patience too. I think what I fear is the idea that patience is really masking the word incompetence. And I will ask you this question. Should you be patient with incompetence? With anything? Ian, if I was incompetent as far as parenting was concerned,
Okay.
should we be patient?
That seems a bit more extreme than football.
Should we be more patient?
It depends.
Again, I've been a parent for 6 days. 2 of those was spent in the hospital where they do everything for you. If you don't know how to do it, it's like, hey, I don't know exactly how to put this onesie on. Can you help? They can do it. Then you go home and all of a sudden it's like, welcome to the wild. I have a feeling that 6 months from now, I'll probably be a better parent than I am today. It will take time for me to get good.
Learn on the job training.
But if I was incompetent, would it be a good job to allow me to continue to parent? Probably not. So when it comes to the Titans and it comes to the Carthon, Brinker, Callahan, this group, I find them to be incompetent. I find them to not do things that I think just a basic coach should do. A basic general manager should do. And again, I didn't read the 7,000 words that Zack Lions wrote. I don't think there is any way you could argue that Rand Carthon is better than John Robinson. And I know the kind of debates that you can have where you can pick one side or the other side. And it really could be, you could talk from either side of it. For instance, I'll use Ryan Tannehill's tenure as a Titan quarterback. Was Ryan Tannehill a good Titan quarterback? Was Ryan Tannehill a great Titans quarterback? We can have that debate. Because on one side of it, I'll tell you that this is the best they've been since Steve McNair. He went to the Pro Bowl, was comeback player of the year. He engineered the second leading offense in the NFL. Not his fault they traded A.J. Brown. Not his fault they hired Todd Downing. And on the other hand, you can argue that, well, Ryan Tannehill threw 3 interceptions against the Cincinnati Bengals, cost you the Super Bowl. But when it comes to Rand versus John Robinson, there is not an argument, period. John Robinson won 61% of his games. John Robinson drafted 3 All-Pros in his first draft. Rand drafted a guard with the 11th overall pick. A quarterback who's already a bust. A running back who never plays. It is not comparable. John's first foray into free agency and trades and yielded DeMarco Murray, the AFC's leading rusher. Rand's led you to Andre Dillard. So, again, like, I don't know what he wrote. Maybe I'll go read it. But when I hear people saying patience, it's like I hear people want patience for the Titans for the sake of patience. Well, we can't fire everybody all the time, Jared. Well, then don't fire the guys that have shown at least a modicum of success at what they do. But the guys that don't have a clue, you can get rid of them. So I don't, when it comes to patience, I'm like, oh, okay, great. Patience. One texter says it won't end until you fire Rand, Chad, Callahan, and Levis. Again, when it comes to me and firing Callahan, I'll put that on the next guy, but I don't think Callahan should. I don't think Callahan has earned the job for next year. Just plain and simple. And I don't think today helped him with, again, that outburst at the podium about, oh yeah, I think it's a dropping F-bombs and all kinds of stuff because somebody asked if the team was soft. So, again, we need to be patient. We need to be patient. You know why we need to be patient? Because Dan Campbell was patient. And do you want Dan Campbell? That's it. To have the 8th best coach in the league, which is what Dan Campbell is. You're going to guilt me into keeping incompetence around? I think last week or whenever it was, I said Dan Campbell wasn't that good of a coach, and somebody was like, name 5 coaches that are better than Dan Campbell. Like, okay. Say Andy Reid's probably better than Dan Campbell. I think Sean Payton's better than Dan Campbell. I think Mike Tomlin is better than Dan Campbell. I think Kyle Shanahan, and I know they're having a down year, but Kyle Shanahan's been to 2 Super Bowls. Let's see when Dan gets to the Super Bowl. And I'll take Harbaugh. Both of them over Dan Campbell. Again, I think that the reason the Lions are good is because they drafted Penei Sewell and Amon-Ra St. Brown and Brian Branch and not Peter Skoronski. That's why I think they're good. Tell me about Dan Campbell. Let's have Dan Campbell play an NFC title game that he doesn't lose for his team, and then we can decide whether or not, we should lose every game and accept it because Dan Campbell lost his first year. What a joke. 615-737-1025. Okay, to Levis. Today at the Titans press conference, they told us they weren't done with Levis. They said, this wasn't some sort of, it's not bigger than what gives us the best chance to win this meaningless game on Sunday at Indy. That's not true. But I have a big question. And not one person who will take the podium or will get in front of a microphone is going to answer it. But it's the only question that matters. We'll get to it next. Stillman & Company, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. You heard in Ian's update, the Titans made it official today. Brian Callahan confirming that Will Levis will not start on Sunday against the Indianapolis Colts. And it just feels like another day, right? What's the old saying? Like sand through the hourglass, so too are the days of our Titans. I think that's what they say, right?
Something like that.
It feels like a soap opera around here. So I want to touch on the Will Levis benching because on Days of Our Titans today, Brian Callahan went crazy about nothing, which I think highlights the clown show that is the organization. But the big story, the big reality is the Will Levis era is over. It's over. Callahan got up there today and he was talking about, doesn't mean anything more than just he's headed to the bench, and we'll assess after the Indy game, and we're not done with Will, and we're still going to coach him, and we still believe in him, and that's not how the NFL works. And I know Floyd Reese was a general manager 20 years ago. Doesn't matter. When it comes to who knows how this league works, him 5 years ago or Callahan today, I'll take Floyd. And Ian, you can back me up on this without putting words into his mouth. What the Titans did yesterday by benching Will Levis, Floyd would tell you is something you don't come back from.
Most likely.
That was something we used to talk about at length. And the Will Levis era will probably be remembered similar to that of Jake Locker's tenure as the quarterback with the Titans. He never had the success that Vince Young or Marcus Mariota had, and it is what it is. I'm not shedding any tears over Will Levis's benching, or to the end of an experiment that, quite frankly, I always felt like the Titans were too optimistic about. Amy Adams Strunk in her sit down with Mike Keith saying, we have a good young quarterback. Do you? Or do you have a young quarterback and we'll see if he's good? Brian Callahan, I have high expectations because Will Levis is everything you want. Is he? I always felt like it was manufactured. I talked to a former general manager before the start of the season, and he said the buzz in the town about Levis was completely unmatched to what the rest of the country thought. That's never a good spot to be in. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what, the buzz was or what they said or what they believed or what they're saying now or what I believe or what Ian believes or what, none of that matters. Here's the real question. And it doesn't matter if this is a benching for one game, Rudolph will lose to the Colts and then go ahead and put Levis back in there, or if this is gone for good and good for gone. But it's how does Amy view trying to think of the right way to say this. How does Amy Adams Strunk view the fact that the Titans are recognizing a failure with the Will Levis experiment? It kind of feels like you can have a glass half full approach or a glass half empty approach. We talked in the last segment about arguing two sides of the table. Theoretically, you can argue two sides of this table. On one hand, Ran Carthon drafted Will Levis. He was the general manager when they drafted Will Levis. He picked up the phone and called Will Levis when they drafted him. He held a press conference in which he chastised the media for negative questions after they drafted Will Levis. And he was the chief decision maker, according to both the owner and himself this year, going into the season where the Titans were so sure of Will Levis that Mason Rudolph was the backup quarterback. Hard to argue Rand's not at least somewhat culpable here. Brian Callahan was hired to coach Will Levis. And this time last year, Amy told everyone she had a good young quarterback. So were these guys wrong? Is the general manager, Ran Carthon, is he incapable of identifying a quarterback in the draft or identifying a quarterback in free agency? Or is he incapable of building a roster around a young quarterback? Is the head coach, who was handpicked by Ran and ownership to coach this quarterback, is he incapable of doing just that? Again, that's one side of the argument here. And if Amy thinks that's the reality, wouldn't she be crazy to let Rand Carthon pick the next quarterback? Or wouldn't she be crazy to let Brian Callahan coach him? Right now, it looks like things are looking up as far as Bo Nix in Denver is concerned. People laughed at the Broncos when they drafted him in the first round as high as they did. But if I asked you straight up, do you trust Sean Payton to identify a quarterback? And do you trust Sean Payton to coach a quarterback? You know the answer to that. But then there's the other side of the Levis coin when talking about Rand and Callahan and their culpability and what it means. Charles Robinson said, Amy Adams Strunk is the one who wanted to pick Will Levis, that it was an ownership-driven choice. Charles' report over a year ago was that the Titans coaching staff wanted to reinforce the roster for the 2023 season. Not the front office, but the coaching staff. The Vrabel crew. But ownership wanted Levis. Also, there was all this talk. It's a value pick, right? Clearly, Rand wasn't in love with Will Levis, or else he would have gone to the mat to draft him with the 11th pick instead of the guard. Does Amy look at Brian Callahan and the empty promises of this franchise quarterback and think to herself, you know what? He did the best he could, but Will Levis simply can't process at the NFL level, and it's time for us to find a new quarterback. And it was me that got us into this, so now I'm going to let the guys I hired to do their jobs without my interference to pick the next quarterback. Which side of the table is she sitting? And I don't know the answer. I know which side of the table I believe is the right answer. And that is that I would never let Rand Carthon pick the next quarterback, and I wouldn't let Brian Callahan coach him. But, again, my opinion doesn't matter. Hers does. And that's what we don't know. But here's what I do know. When it comes to the Titans, we are at an inflection point with the franchise. Because whatever the next decision is, will be the one that lasts for 2 or 3 years, at least. The Jets are still paying for blowing the Zach Wilson pick, and that was 4 years ago. You're still reeling from trading A.J. Brown, and that was 3 years ago. You guys know how I feel. I don't think these guys should pick the next quarterback. But again, it only matters how Amy feels and what she really believes. And there are some people out there, just like Derek said when a caller called in yesterday to the midday show and said that they need to fire Rand. Derek said there are people out there that actually believe what that caller said. Led Adam to point out that there are many people that believe that. And I just don't think that we need to waste 3 more weeks of our lives before we'll know. But that's what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to waste 3 more weeks and then see what Amy decides to do. But I can live with 3 weeks. What I'm worried about is 3 years. Because if you let them pick the next quarterback, that is a 3-year commitment. So hopefully it won't be the next 3 years. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number if you want to weigh in on that, 615-737-1025. And I don't know, like, do we want to get in the nitty-gritty of why Levis got benched? He got benched because he stinks. Now, why he stinks, that's legitimate. We can get into 615-737-1025. And then there's the other side of this, which is the Titans turning to Mason Rudolph. We'll touch on that next on your phones. Stillman and Company, 615-737-1025, right here on 1025 The Game. Let me tell all the fine folks out there, tomorrow is your chance to participate in Preds Pick to Click. If you correctly guess a Preds player that scores a goal in the Preds game tomorrow night, you win a pair of tickets to an upcoming Preds home game. Participate with Robbie and Retro tomorrow morning at 8:45. Ian, do you think anybody had Adam Wilsby on the bingo card last night? Preds picked a click.
Probably not. Should have though, considering that move. But
That was a freaking goal last
that's a nice
night.
little move. Yeah.
Speaking of Wilsby, do not miss tonight's Smashville Live at Brewhouse South in Cool Springs at 6:00, where Adam Wilsby and Kevin Gravel will be the Preds player guests. And considering that Adam Wilsby might be the best defenseman on the team right now, might be worth going to. That's Preds. That's Smashville Live tonight at Brewhouse South in Cool Springs at 6:00. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game.
What has changed now that you made this decision?
I think I should be very clear about it too. This doesn't mean that this is the end of Will's ability to be a good quarterback. This is just situationally in the season and where we're at. We felt like we needed a spark at the quarterback position. He's kind of had two games that really have been a struggle for him, and we need to have better there. And just like any other player, when your play dips the way it did, and we have a chance to let somebody else go do it. I still believe very much in Will. I still plan on coaching him hard. He's still going to be ready to play. Those are all things that we have to be able to do, and he's under contract and he's still part of our team. And so no different than any other position, and we're going to coach him hard. And there's things that he's really improved on over the course of the year. And those are things we're going to keep working to improve overall. So
Ian, get excited. Mason Rudolph's quarterbacking on Sunday against the Colts.
Yeah, he is.
Get excited. Maybe CBS will bump the game from Tom McCarthy in that group that's calling it.
Yeah, get Jim Nance up in Indy.
Who's with him? Ross Tucker, I think. Ross Tucker and some other guy.
You're much better at remembering that than me.
Oh, I can't remember the other guy. They did the Texan game, I think.
Wasn't
Jay
Tiki?
Jay
Feely.
Feely. Tiki is with Andrew Catalan and McCourty, and I miss James Lofton on that crew. Again, I agree with Ian. Mason Rudolph at quarterback. Get Tony Romo or Tom Brady to Indianapolis on Sunday. I kid.
It's a CBS, I think.
Tony Romo. Get Tony Romo. I kid, though. I joke. But I want to say this about the whole Mason Rudolph thing. It's hilarious for me to hear Brian Callahan say, well, we just needed a spark. So I decided to make the change to Mason Rudolph. It actually reminds me, like I can still remember where I was sitting at the outdoor podium on that October day in 2019 when Mike Vrabel said he was making the change from Marcus Mariota to Ryan Tannehill because they needed a spark. That was what he said. And I remember Tannehill came out and he went to the podium, and then everybody went in the locker room and they gathered around Marcus. Today, Mason Rudolph came out at the podium, and then everybody went in the locker room and gathered around Will Levis. It's odd how shockingly similar these scenarios are. And at this point, the similarities now end. When Mike Vrabel was talking about needing a spark, it felt far-fetched that the 2-4 Titans were going to end up in the AFC Championship game, but it wasn't a mathematical impossibility. It is a mathematical impossibility that the Titans could make the playoffs this year. Also, Mason Rudolph is not Ryan Tannehill. And we've seen Mason Rudolph play this year. And again, we've seen a lot of Ryan Tannehill, even at his worst. And I think we all know that Mason Rudolph couldn't hold Ryan Tannehill's job. So I kind of laugh because when I hear Callahan say, we need a spark, again, I'm taken back to 2019, the exact same thing Vrabel said. And I remember that day, Floyd and I did a remote out at Boomba's in East Nashville. And that day we were talking about, well, do you want to draft Justin Herbert because it's another Oregon quarterback? And are they going to be bad enough to get the Burrow who's lighting it up at LSU? Is he a number one pick, really? They won't be bad enough to get Tua, but could they get one of these? That was the conversation. And then they ended up in the AFC title game. None of that is possible here. And this takes me again to the Mason Rudolph front. I don't really see what the point is other than to fire Will Levis. Oftentimes in the NFL, teams will bench a quarterback for a couple of reasons. Number one, they'll bench a quarterback. The number one reason that a team benches a quarterback when they are done with the quarterback is because there is an injury guarantee in the contract and they do not want him to get hurt. I don't know if you remember Denver last year. Sean Payton benched Russell Wilson midway through the season. And Russell was actually starting to play okay, and they were starting to win some games, and Russell got benched. And it's like, well, why did Russell get benched? And Sean Payton said, we have to see what we have in Jarrett Stidham. He knew what he had in Jarrett Stidham. They just didn't want Russell Wilson to get hurt, and they didn't want Russell Wilson's injury guarantee to cost them even more money than the $39 million they're spending this year for Russell to play on the Steelers. Daniel Jones in New York has an injury guarantee. That's why the Giants benched Daniel Jones and made Tommy DeVito the starter and Drew Lock the backup and made Jones the third stringer because they didn't want him getting anywhere near the football field to where he could get hurt. Which again takes us to Levis. There is no injury guarantee with Will Levis. There's no contractual benefit to the Titans benching Will Levis. There's no playoff implications for the Titans starting Mason Rudolph. And again, while I didn't think Ryan Tannehill was a franchise quarterback or was your answer at quarterback when they made the move to him, I feel infinitely more certain that Mason Rudolph over the next 3 weeks is not going to prove that he is that himself. So what's the point of this? Like, what's the point of sending Mason Rudolph out there against the Colts next week? They will tell you, well, Jared, we have got to win this game. But you know as well as I do that unless your livelihood is attached to winning and losing this Colts game with no real mathematical positive implications, it doesn't matter. So what's the point? And it makes me wonder, is Amy putting these guys in a position where it is, okay, fine. If Levis is the problem, show me you guys can coach over the next 3 weeks with Rudolph at quarterback. If you look like a reasonable NFL team with Rudolph at quarterback over the next 3 weeks, maybe I'll keep you. That's the only thing I can think of, which is Brian Callahan's trying to win 3 games in a row, save his job, and argue, see, we improved. It's just Levis that stunk. Other than that, I see no real reason to make this move to Mason Rudolph. I see no real reason for the Titans to look back at this and say, you know what? It's really important that we win this meaningless indie game. It's really important that we see what we have in Mason Rudolph. You scored 20 points in overtime against the Patriots. I know what you have in Mason Rudolph. So that's all I can come up with. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Joey from Bellevue says, what's the purpose of benching Levis for a game? Just come out and say this is how it is the rest of the year. How are you going to bench him with 3 games left and say it's a game-to-game thing? What a joke. Again, what I'm trying to figure out is, what is the point? Like, what is the purpose of them saying, like, hey, we're going to stick Mason Rudolph out there and see what happens? If you win the next 3 games and you finish 6-11, you'll be picking 9th. That's bad for the trajectory of the franchise. Unless your job is on the line to demonstrate that you've actually made improvement with your football team in order to justify you staying on as the coach. But again, that's what Floyd would call protecting your job and not doing your job. Those are 2 different things. One texter says the Titans could continue to be bad for another year or 2 and draft the hometown kid, Marcel Reed. Why don't the Titans wait even more? Titans could be bad, Ian, for the next however many years, and they could draft Jack Stillman in the first round to be the starting quarterback.
Has a nice ring to it. Titans starting quarterback, Jack Stillman.
I'm not sure he'll be tall enough.
You never know.
Kyler Murray. Did I tell you that at the Super Bowl 2 years ago, I was getting my credential and Kyler was getting his credential like in the booth right next to me. And I looked over and I'm like, oh, Kyler Murray. And I'm like looking at him and, you know, he's just wearing regular clothes, getting his credential. I'm like, dude, you're as tall as me. He's listed at 5'10", or he was 5'10" at the combine. And I'm 5'8", 5'9"-ish. I'm like, dude, you're as tall as me. You're not taller than me. And I'm not tall. So maybe Jack has a shot. 615-737-1025. More of your phones at 615-737-1025. Plus, what the guy who reported that Mason Rudolph was in and Will Levis was out had to say about the future of the quarterback position for the Titans. Very controversial. We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5 The Game.
You stated that Will is obviously under contract for next year. Does he still figure into the long-term possibilities here in your mind?
Yeah, I'm not worried about any long-term discussions at the moment. I'm trying to get this week done and win this week. So those are all things we can revisit again at a later date. But yeah, I expect Will to be the backup, and he is. He's under contract here, and I still believe in Will. I still believe he can improve. And those things haven't changed. But for right now, this is the best decision for our football team.
Boy, let me tell you, I hope that the reason why he's not worried about the future and he's only worried about the Indianapolis game is because he doesn't think he's going to be coaching in the future, and that Rand's not going to be GMing in the future, and that Chad Brinker is not going to be, as he said in his words, Ian, servicing the head coach in the future. That's the only thing I can hope for. Again, when he's like, I'm just worried about winning today and winning this week. Well, nobody else is. Everybody's worried about the future. So there was a little nugget at ESPN about where the Titans go from here. This comes from Jeremy Fowler at ESPN.com. And Jeremy Fowler broke the story yesterday that the Titans were going to be turning it over to Mason Rudolph. By the way, the tea leaves were obvious that they were going to Rudolph on Monday when Callahan got up there and said they were working through the quarterback situation. That means they're changing the quarterback. I've learned this from experience. But you have to tell the two quarterbacks before you tell the media, and you probably have to confer with the owner and everybody else before you make that type of decision on a grand scale, which is probably what Brian Callahan had to do. But Jeremy Fowler broke the story that Levis would be benched. Thus, I think you can infer that Fowler has hooks in the organization. I don't know what it is. I don't know what the connection is. Fowler, I think, is like a Cleveland-Pittsburgh guy, and I can't think of any Cleveland-Pittsburgh connections, but again, who knows? And he wrote this in his little notes section at ESPN.com behind the paywall. Quote, does the news that the Titans are planning a quarterback switch this week spell the end for Will Levis in Tennessee? Now, remember, publicly, Brian Callahan doesn't want to talk about the future, but we know that privately, they talk about the future just as much as we do. Fowler writes, quote, that certainly feels possible. Levis's core issue is committing turnovers in bunches, and Coach Brian Callahan has grown impatient with it. I can see a scenario in which the Titans continue to develop Levis this offseason, given the team might be picking in the back half of the top 10 in what's considered a weaker quarterback class. But even as the Titans went back to him in November, the post-shoulder injury, he reverted to his turnover ways on Sunday with 3 interceptions and a fumble against Cincinnati. Mason Rudolph, the likely starter this week, helps Tennessee's offense play on schedule more efficiently. By the way, isn't that what Callahan said today, Ian? He was asked about Rudolph and said that the advantage is he plays on time.
Something like that, yeah.
And the line in here from Fowler is he helps Tennessee's offense play on schedule more efficiently. Should we read into that as Brian Callahan's lips to Jeremy Fowler's ass?
Probably not quite, no. Maybe somebody on the offensive staff.
Should we keep it in the back of our minds, though?
Maybe. I mean, maybe he heard the same quote.
But this was written before the quote was made.
Before the quote? I don't know.
This was written like 6 hours before the press conference.
Maybe.
Sounds to me like Callahan to Fowler might be your connection. We'll keep our eyes on it. See if this is Diana Rossini 2.0. Fowler continues. Where does Tennessee turn this offseason? Rodgers, and this is in reference to Aaron Rodgers.
Raw land.
Has played well the past 2 weeks, finally looks healthy, and has been linked to the team in the past. Yes, linked by me, because he bought raw land and built a house in Tennessee and told people in the neighborhood that he was open to playing for the Titans and that he was not going back to Green Bay and was open to playing for Vrabel. And I reported it, and that started all the speculation. So Jeremy Fowler, again, let's break this down. Jeremy Fowler clearly has hooks in the organization. There is no questioning that. Like, again, when it came to Vrabel and Diana, we knew that everything Diana was reporting came from Vrabel, but that doesn't mean that it's not true. What it means is this is what Mike Vrabel wants you to know that he can't say. If Jeremy Fowler is the same way with somebody in the hierarchy of the organization, Brinker, Carthon, or Callahan, and it seems that he is, given that he broke the news and that his line about why Mason Rudolph helps the Titans offense play on schedule more efficiently, which was essentially the exact same thing Brian Callahan said today, it tells you Fowler is talking to the organization, and thus his report or his speculation is more informed than anything you'll hear from anybody else, especially somebody like me or Paul or whatever. And he brings up Aaron Rodgers as a potential for the Titans. Whoa now. So let me just give you my thoughts on Aaron Rodgers as a potential quarterback option for the Titans. Number one, I don't think you'll win anything with Aaron Rodgers. But it would be fun on the radio if Aaron Rodgers comes to town. And the other thing is, because I hear people talk about this all the time, there's like 1% of the population out there that thinks that Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan need to be given 4 more years. Like it's a presidential term. Most anybody who thinks they need to stay, and I'm convinced that most people don't think they need to stay, but most people who think they need to stay always say they're on the hot seat next year. If you're on the hot seat next year, chances are you're not going to win if Jalen Milroe is your quarterback. You're probably not going to be able to draft Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, so they're out. And Sam Darnold is going to get franchised in Minnesota. Whether or not he stays there, that's a different discussion, but he's going to get tagged. So take him out. After that, it becomes this big discussion of Mac Jones, Justin Fields, Daniel Jones, etc. Nothing that gets you very excited. So if you were a general manager or you were a coach and you were on the hot seat and you can't draft a rookie that's going to start right away, that's going to make an impact, and there's no real free agents out there that are any good, I think I would try to save my job with Aaron Rodgers with the hopes that the Jets are just so fakakta and that by Aaron being humbled a little bit, that he could come in here and be this year's version of Russell Wilson. I'm not betting on it, but if it was my only option, if my ass was on the line, I think I might do it. But let me ask you guys this question. Do you really think the ball didn't bounce our way, Rand Carthon? And Brian Callahan, who today said the F word for the first time, I think, in his life.
He cursed at Levis on the field.
That is true. The second time in his life. Do you think they could really manage Aaron Rodgers? So all I will say is if Fowler is speculating that the Titans could turn to Aaron Rodgers, he's hearing that from somebody whose opinion either matters or knows more than we do. Because again, he reported that Rudolph was going to be the quarterback. He's saying the reason they're going to Rudolph is because, again, quote, he helps Tennessee's offense play on schedule more efficiently. Almost the exact thing verbatim Callahan said today. Do we have that Callahan cut? If we don't, it's okay. He said it like an hour ago. But if we've got the Callahan cut on White Rudolph, if we got it, I want to hear how much that aligns with. But Aaron Rodgers, again, I don't think he'll win anything, but it will be fun. It will be such a fun offseason if Aaron Rodgers becomes the quarterback of the Tennessee Titans. Because if Aaron Rodgers becomes the quarterback of the Tennessee Titans, 2 years ago when I was pining, when I was looking out the window like the boy and the girl and the cat in a hat, just staring out the window for a better quarterback than Ryan Tannehill after he threw 3 interceptions against the Bengals. And I heard that Aaron Rodgers was building a house in Franklin or Brentwood. I can't remember. I remember the A to Z Sports got to stick up their ass about the difference between Brentwood and Franklin. And I was like, oh, who cares? But regardless, if I remember as excited as I would have been, Titans fans, 10 out of 10 Titan fans would have been excited 3 years ago about Aaron Rodgers being a quarterback. I think if they were to sign Aaron Rodgers now, it'd be 5 out of 10 Titan fans would be excited about Aaron Rodgers being the quarterback. Because there's 3 out of 10 Titan fans in an offseason that will believe anything the Titans tell them. The Titans could decide to make Poo-Poo Johnson their next quarterback, and 3 out of 10 people would be like, I don't know. Poo-Poo really threw the ball well in practice one day, according to Jim Wyatt. So if they say they're going with Poo-Poo, Brian Callahan knows more than we do. Give me Poo-Poo Johnson. By the way, that's what I'm going to start referring to when it comes to the fans and just look, if they sign Sam Darnold, you'll love him. If they sign Daniel Jones to be quarterback, you'll love him. If there is a 30% of this fan base that would get behind Poo-Poo Johnson as the quarterback. And then I think when you add the 30% Poo-Poo people and you add there's probably maybe 2 extra of the 7 remaining people, Ian, that would get on board with Aaron Rodgers.
Something like that.
Again, I wouldn't do it. I don't think it's going to help you be good for the long haul. Don't even think it's going to help you be good for the short term. But could be worse. Could be Mason Rudolph. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Let's throw that out there. Let's react to that. Again, Aaron Rodgers. That's where we are. The coach won't speak to anything beyond the next second of the next day. And yet they're talking to ESPN about Aaron Rodgers. Unbelievable. 615-737-1025. What a freaking clown show. 1025 The Game and Cromwell Media have teamed up with the Nashville Predators for Coats for Our Kids, benefiting the Boys and Girls Clubs of Middle Tennessee. Donate a new or slightly used coat at the game studio and at the Ford Ice Centers in Antioch, Bellevue, and Clarksville. And also this Friday, we will be live from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. at the Ford Ice Center in Bellevue, taking donations and giving away swag and tickets to an upcoming Preds game. Coat donations will also be accepted at the Preds home game at Bridgestone Arena on Saturday, December 21st. For more information, visit theGameNashville.com/coats.
What are the reasons that you think Mason does give you the better chance to win right now?
There's things that he does. He plays on time. He does a really good job of moving the offense down the field. He's not – him and Will are very different styles of player, and I think that's ultimately what we needed right now is the way that Mason plays, what gives us a chance to win this game this week.
Okay, so that was the Brian Callahan cut in which he said that he plays on time. And Jeremy Fowler's article said that Rudolph helps the Titans play on schedule more effectively. So it wasn't exactly verbatim, but it was pretty darn close to being the same. And again, the thing I take away from the Jeremy Fowler speculation was the quote, where does Tennessee turn this offseason? Aaron Rodgers has played well the past 2 weeks, finally looks healthy, and has been linked to the team in the past. Boy, I tell you, that would be wild and crazy. So I have come up with a new name for who the Titans may sign at quarterback for this upcoming season that 30% of the people will love no matter who it is. So if they sign Poo-Poo Johnson to be quarterback, 30% of the people will say, I believe. Whether that ends up being Kirk Cousins, Daniel Jones, Jared Stillman, it doesn't matter. Somebody texted me and said we should call the 30% the Poo-Poo crew. I think that's kind of mean. But like the distinguished gentleman on the YouTube chat who we think might be Rand Carthon's burner, he would be, if they signed Poo-Poo Johnson to be the quarterback, he'd be all for it. Would not stop talking about how you guys don't understand what Poo-Poo Johnson did at Rear End State. You guys don't understand. And that's the world we live in, where 30% of the people will agree with whatever the Titans do no matter what, even though the Titans have done nothing right for the last 3 years. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to weigh in. That's 615-737-1025. One texter says, for 1 year, I think it would be fine, but why would Aaron Rodgers sign up for that? So here's why Aaron Rodgers would sign up for it. I'm not sure there's much of a market for Aaron Rodgers. You know, the Jets are as dysfunctional as it can possibly get. And everybody knows it. And the Jets bent over backwards for Aaron Rodgers. And it's left them with 2 dismal seasons. And they're done with Aaron Rodgers. Everybody who seems to nibble at the Aaron Rodgers, I don't know if I can say this on the air, but anybody who's beholden to Aaron ends up getting screwed in the end. And the Green Bay Packers gave themselves options with the Jordan Love and everything else. And that's why they're the ones that came out of this with a shot to have a successful football operation. Everybody else that has gotten on their knees for Aaron has regretted it. So I think that most people would say, like, hey, we're not going to sign our lives away to Aaron Rodgers. But the Titans may not have a choice. Sam Darnold stays in Minnesota. Shedeur Sanders goes to the Raiders. Cam Ward goes to the Giants. What are you going to do? Again, you're on the hot seat. And your choice is Mac Jones or Aaron Rodgers. You're going to take Aaron Rodgers. If I was on the hot seat, I would take Aaron Rodgers. Jameis Winston or Aaron Rodgers. You're going to take Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers has stunk this year by Aaron Rodgers standards. But again, there's a chance, just like with Russell Wilson in Pittsburgh this year, that you could get back to at least a little bit of what used to make Aaron Aaron. So that's why, again, you would be interested. And then with Aaron, Aaron owns a home here. Aaron, there's no state income tax. And with Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan being desperate, because only a desperate team would go get Aaron Rodgers, with those guys being in the situation they're in, who do you think's in charge? If Aaron Rodgers signs with the Titans and Brian Callahan's a coach and Rand Carthon won't even hold a press conference. You think he's going to stand up to Aaron Rodgers? So Aaron will get everything his way. Rand Carthon will go out and not bring back NWI, but he'll sign Randall Cobb out of retirement. Who else we're going to go get, Ian? Tony Pollard, they'll cut him. They'll go get Aaron Jones.
Yep. Bakhtiari, bring him back.
Oh, got
Move
to.
him to right tackle.
Well, they'll put Bakhtiari at left tackle. They'll move J.C. Latham to right tackle.
Okay, there you go.
Because that's what Aaron wants.
That's your plan anyways.
So, again, that's the Aaron crew. And that's what's going to happen. At that point, I may rather have Poo-Poo Johnson. If I had to be blunt. One texter says, what happens if the 49ers don't pay Brock Purdy? They're going to pay Brock Purdy. And again, we learned this with the Lamar Jackson thing. Just because you can give somebody a contract extension doesn't mean that at that time you have to give somebody a contract extension. Teams like Jacksonville, that I wouldn't consider to be overly well run, get up there and say, we got to pay our quarterback. But Jacksonville could have waited. They didn't. That doesn't mean you don't have to. And so if San Francisco goes to Purdy and Purdy wants $60 million a year, which is probably going to be where he starts, then I think you're going to see some people that are like, well, I don't know about that. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, do you want to come back for $1 million next year? Or do you want to sign for $53 million a year? And that's how you negotiate. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025 here on the program. So there is something about what's happened this year that I am just dying about. I mean, dying about when it comes to the Titans. And if you can't see it, you need to get your eyes checked. We'll get to it next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Boy, what a day in Titanland. What a couple of days in Titanland. They get embarrassed and smoked at home against Cincinnati Bengals. They throw 3 interceptions and 4 passes. Bench the quarterback. Non-committal on Monday. Report comes out. Levis is on the bench on Tuesday. And today, Brian Callahan had to yell and scream at the media because they were asked about whether or not the team was too soft. And boy, did he get mad about that, which was an all-timer from Callahan. But that's not what I'm dying about inside. Just dying, just laughing my tush off. And I hope everybody can see it. When I used to work with Floyd, I used to get frustrated because I would say things to him like, Floyd, do you think Will Levis is going to be the next great franchise quarterback? And he'd sit there and he'd say, I hope. Every time. We used to talk about Mariota. Is Mariota the guy? Is it? Well, and he would, when I would choose to listen, which wasn't as often as it should have been, he had some very insightful things to say. But when it came to getting Floyd to put his foot down, you tell, is Marcus the guy or not the guy? He wouldn't do it. It was always a, we'll see, we hope, this is what, the increments we need, things like that. And I used to get kind of frustrated because I would think, you're the football expert. You're the one that is supposed to, you're the doctor. You're feeling bad. And when you feel bad, you go to the doctor. And you expect that the doctor will be able to tell you what's wrong. But guess what? A lot of the time, the doctors, they're saying, well, it could be this or it could be that. Let's see if it's this. And then if it's not, then we'll see if it's that. Doctor, is my chemotherapy going to work to eradicate all the cancer? I hope. And that's just the reality of medicine and the reality of life. Even if you're an expert, there's a chance that, hey, this really good idea I have, it might fail. Even the smartest guys make big mistakes. Warren Buffett's made a bad investment before. And then there's the Titans. And this year, when it comes to Will Levis, the Tennessee Titans positioned Will Levis to be their franchise quarterback for everybody to know. Because they told everybody that's what he was. Brian Callahan in the offseason on Bussin' with the Boys. Brian Callahan, what do you think of Will Levis?
I feel like there's some really exciting pieces that, if we can put it all together, I think we have a chance. And obviously I believe in Will Levis. It's a large reason why I took the job, is that I think he's capable of being a really good player. And he has not disappointed so far in the offseason program. He's fantastic. Does everything you ask the way you want it. And I'm excited to see what we have. I'll leave it at that. I think we can put together a competitive football team.
I mean, look, he said that I'm excited to see what we'll have, but he told you right there, he's the guy. I mean, I'm telling you, this guy, he's everything you want to see. I'm excited. I took the job because of this guy. This guy, he's man. Remember, Amy sat down with Mike Keith, and Mike Keith said, why should Titan fans be excited? She listed off Rand Carthon, cap space, and a good young quarterback as the reason why. The Titans were telling everybody behind the scenes how much they believed in Will Levis. This is Charles Davis, who, when you see Charles at a Titans practice, he is connected to the hip of Rand Carthon. This is Charles Davis during the offseason on SiriusXM NFL radio. Here's what he said about the Titans quarterback situation.
Rand Carthon able to make a maneuver, right? Make a trade, get into that spot to pick a quarterback that was acknowledged as a first-round pick and get him in the second round. You're exactly right about how you're viewed, but I think in Tennessee, he's viewed as their guy. Doesn't matter whether they got him first, second round. He was their quarterback of the future. They felt great that they could get him in the second round when everyone thought they was going to go in the first. But I don't think they look at him like, oh, well, we got him in the second. It's a totally different ball game. I think they see him as their guy for the upcoming, years in the NFL. So we'll see how that works out.
So again, Brian Callahan told you right then and there on Bussin' with the Boys that he believed in Levis. It was a big reason why he picked the job. He's done everything in the offseason that you could possibly ask for. And Charles Davis is saying, I'll tell you, my buddy Ran Carthon, he made that great move to get there, to get that quarterback. And I know people view Levis as a second-round quarterback because he was taken in the second round, but not them. He's their guy. He's their first-round quarterback. He's their all-in. He's there. They believe in him. They think they got the steal. They believe, they this, they that. The Titans told you, even though they didn't know, it was irresponsible. And maybe some of it was because they're trying to sell these incredibly expensive PSLs to suckers like me. Although I didn't take the bait all offseason. You guys did. I didn't. Maybe it's because they were trying to sell the PSLs. Or maybe it's because that's what Amy wanted to hear was, Will's the guy. I mean, he's golfing buddies with her son-in-law who works in the front office. It just seemed to make sense. But every public sentiment was not, hey, let's see. Hey, we hope. Hey, we got to correct this. Hey, we got to work on that. Hey, it's a long season. That's what the Green Bay Packers said about Jordan Love last year. They said these are going to be a big 13 games left in the year to see if Jordan Love's the guy or not. But in Green Bay, they tell the truth. And in Green Bay, they win. Here, it was just Levis is the guy. In fact, Mike Lombardi said after the first game of the year, said that, hey, it was Ran Carthon that told the owner Levis was the guy. Here's what he said.
Who should get the game ball is Will Levis. Look, here's what I'll say about Will Levis. Okay, you just lost one of the best coaches in football, Mike Vrabel, because Ran Carthon was convinced Will Levis is going to be the guy. Okay, so Ran Carthon won the power struggle in your hometown there of Nashville. And they built everything this off. Brian Callahan got the job because of Will Levis. Every move they made this offseason is to make Will Levis better. And I'm telling you, I will be completely shocked. I'll give it more time. But Will Levis is a robot playing quarterback. Look, he couldn't beat out Sean Clifford. He was horrendous in this game. Fumbled. The ball sprayed all over. He's got guys wide open. He can't get him the football. Look, that was the best thing going for Chicago was Will Levis.
I mean, he said Ran Carthon convinced the owner to get rid of Mike Vrabel because Will Levis was the truth. So I find it so laughable that the guys that sold you and sold her and sold Charles Davis and told everybody that Levis was going to be the guy are now standing there with their hands to their side, shrugging, saying, yeah, well, we just got to go a different direction. Give us another chance to pick a quarterback. Wasn't our fault this year. Levis stinks, not our fault. Do you realize how ridiculous that is? Because now that they know Levis sucks, it's going to be, well, he was a second-round pick. Well, Vrabel wanted this, and Tim Kelly wanted this, and this guy wanted this, and I didn't pick him, and that's what's going to happen. And I don't have a problem if Brian Callahan took the job and said, hey, working with Will Levis has really been a joy. Now, we'll see when we get out on the field if he's going to be able to do the job, but so far working with him has been a joy. That's one thing. That's the Floyd Reese. We'll see. But instead, it was all sunshine and rainbows and blowing smoke. And now that he's not good, all of the people that were trying to sell you on him are now going to try to distance themselves from him. And you're a total sucker if you buy it. If you think that the Titans, again, we joked about Poo-Poo Johnson. They'll sign Poo-Poo Johnson, and 30% of the people will think he's going to be the next John Elway. But if you believe that Callahan and Carthon and Brinker and this group, if you believe that they're not responsible for Will Levis, then explain to me why they just absolutely told everybody how good he was going to be before the season, including the owner. And when you come up with that answer, give me one that explains why they should pick the next quarterback and why it's not going to be the same thing. And then you've got a valid case. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. And I do have a serious question for the Rand Club. You know, the people that, again, are still defending this administration that are saying, oh, no, Jared, you got to understand, you got to. A serious question when it comes to the fact that the Titans have, in NFL language, given up on Will Levis. We'll get to that next. 615-737-1025 here on Stillman and Company. It is bowl season, and the Game Sports Network is your home for the college football bowl games and the college football playoff, presented by Twin Peaks and Parman Tractor and Equipment. Today, catch the Art of Sport LA Bowl on 94.9 The Fan. Cal and UNLV will kick off at 8 o'clock. For a list of games carried on the Game Sports Network, visit thegamenashville.com/bowl games.
did that decision come for you? Like knowing a big part of why you are here was to maximize Will Levis's potential.
Yeah, it wasn't an easy decision by any stretch. There was put a lot of thought into it. Went back and watched a lot of things and consulted where I needed to consult, and those are just decisions that are difficult. It was not for. I mean, it wasn't for lack of coaching or pouring into. I mean, we've given at every turn as much as we can to try to put Will in position to succeed, and he's shown improvement. There's a lot of things he has improved at, but it hasn't. There hasn't been enough consistency at this moment, and so those are the things that we're trying to fix. But yeah, those aren't easy decisions ever.
By the way, he has not shown a lot of improvement. There is no statistical category, I believe, in which Levis is better this year than he was last year. So, as Maury Povich would say, the lie detector determined that was a lie. Hate to say it. But again, hey, before the year, you were talking about, maximizing his potential, and you were, well, we tried. Shrug it off. Don't blame us. So you were hired to fix or to develop this quarterback by benching him. You're admitting you failed. Your thoughts? Well, we tried. Boy, that gives me a lot of confidence in the future. And here's the other thing that I just can't get over. Is Ran Carthon, who drafted Will Levis, not responsible at all? That is a serious question. Because I think there are people that actually believe that Brian Callahan is not responsible for Will Levis's regression and for the fact that the guy he was hired to be good at quarterback stinks and is getting benched. And I think there are people out there that believe that Ran Carthon is not responsible for Will Levis, even though he, A, drafted Will Levis, B, made Will Levis the starting quarterback this year, C, hired a coach to coach him, and D, did not get himself an insurance policy to go behind Will Levis that was better than Mason Rudolph. Not Jameis Winston, not Joe Flacco, nobody. By the way, this exact thing is what cost Arthur Smith his job in Atlanta. Because they thought Desmond Ridder was the guy, and they brought in Taylor Heineke to back up. And so because they brought in Taylor Heineke to back up, when Ridder in October proved that he sucked, they didn't have anything or anybody to go to. I begged them. I was like, sign Sam Darnold and let him compete for the job. No, Ritter's our guy. Okay. Good job, Arthur. And now he's a coordinator. And yet there are people out there that seem to think that this is not a mark against Callahan, that the guy, again, that he was hired to develop, they're out on. Or for Carthon, the guy that he drafted in the second round, traded up for, is a bust. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable to me that people could think that. 615-737-1025. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And that includes after the offseason of toxic positivity, where the Titans sat there and pumped sunshine every day about how great Levis was going to be. I also keep wondering, somebody texted on Monday, and they said when they bring everybody back, Carthon, Callahan, Brinker, everybody, when they bring everybody back, you, talking about me, you're going to lose it. And there is some truth that I will go nuts if Amy puts out a letter, because she's not doing an interview. If Amy puts out a letter saying that while this season didn't meet our high expectations that we always have, I know deep down that Ran Carthon is the right guy to lead us forward, I will go nuts. Set your alarms for 2:00 that day. But again, when it comes to Amy doing that and the reality that we may have to live with a whole nother season of I can't get over the fact that they bungled this so poorly. And people still don't want to blame them for it. Like our midday show. Phone lines here by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. One texter says, this is the exact problem with the Titans. If they keep treating the media and fans as stupid as some in the media, some in the media will ask stupid questions, such as, is your team soft? Here's an idea. The Titans need to win games. Have the team perform and act like the team you were hired to make them be. Minimum turnovers, minimum penalties, adequate special teams, etc. If you treat the public as stupid, you deserve to be treated as if you were stupid. So this takes me back to the whole Ran Carthon thing. And again, I think what highlights Rand's incompetence as your general manager is the line about the ball not bouncing their way. In fact, it's a line he's used multiple times. At the end of last season, he said that the ball's not round and the ball didn't bounce our way, and we played in 7 one-score games. So I would say that we didn't fail. I would say the ball bounced our way. That's what he said. Then after the Detroit game, he referenced fumbles that Detroit recovered, and he said the ball didn't bounce our way. Now, again, Chris and Derek and TD, and they're all trying to tell me he's not really talking about the ball, except for the fact that he's referencing the ball when he's using that figure of speech. He's using examples where the ball didn't bounce their way. But I go back to his idea that he could look at you, the fan, and he could say, the ball didn't bounce their way. And I said, either he's stupid and he thinks that you're stupid and you'll buy it, or he's stupid and thinks the ball didn't bounce their way. But it's one of the two. There is no logical explanation other than he's incompetent that he would get up there and say that in front of the fans. And by the way, we dog on Rand for why he doesn't do press conferences. I'm going to tell you right now, I think the Titans don't want him doing press conferences because the draft press conference was a disaster and the Vrabel press conference was a disaster. And he says things like, we checked every box, that they're like, just don't do any interviews, which is not a good sign when it comes to being your GM. Phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHonda.com. DeJuan is up next here on the program. DeJuan, go ahead.
What's up, man? I just got two statements. Number one, we're not 100% sure if Rand is the guy that picked Levis, given the fact that when Vrabel was the head coach and they got Rand in, it was almost like a collaboration. So there's no proof. If he picked Levis, and I agree with you, that's a bust. And that's one thing. Number two, without a quarterback, you got nothing in this league. And at one point in time, this season, we had a top 5 defense, but we can't score a touchdown. So it's gonna run his ship. So I just believe you let Rand pick his guy.
Why?
Because there's no proof that he picked Levis. If he picked Levis, I agree with everything you're saying.
So there's no proof that he picked Levis. So he held a press conference after they picked Levis. He defended the pick of Levis, got mad at the media for criticizing the pick of Levis, and you don't think he has any culpability for picking Will Levis?
What you say in a press conference does not mean what you did behind closed doors, and you know that. Okay. We're one organization. We're going to speak as an organization. That doesn't mean
DeJuan,
he picked him.
When they picked Will Levis, do you know who picked up the phone and called Will Levis?
Okay.
Do you know who did that?
I don't know.
Ran Carthon.
What does that mean? He picked him? Does that mean in the boardroom and discussions that he's the one that said, "Hey, Levis is my guy"? I don't care what you say, Vrabel. Levis is my guy.
So you're telling me that you believe that Ran Carthon had no authority last season, even though he was the general manager, got a promotion this year. The team is worse. And now you think that I owe Ran Carthon something else in addition to the promotion he got, that you're arguing was definitely a promotion because he didn't pick Levis according to you.
No, I didn't say he didn't pick it. I said, we don't know. Me and you wasn't in that room, right? And last year when they made this announcement for Rand and they made the collaboration and the fact that, hey, Vrabel's kind of, you even said it. I got this from you. You even was like, hey, I believe Vrabel is going to really be the GM and coach him through and help him be a GM since he doesn't have the experience.
I never said that.
You said. I promise you said.
No, I never said that. He said that. Okay. Here's what I reported. Thank you, DeJuan. Because what I reported is kind of getting, Derek has kind of taken this and Paul's kind of taken this. And I said last year in October, I think it was October of last year, somebody who was in the building told me in October of last year, and Ian knows who it was, told me that Rand plays GM more than he is GM. Again, somebody in the building who works there every day told me he plays GM more than he is GM. And Derek has taken that to mean, well, then you're saying Vrabel was the GM, and that's not true. The point of he plays GM more than he actually is the GM is a statement that Rand doesn't do the work. That's what I was told. that Rand's the GM and title, but don't go to Rand asking for an idea about what they should do with the football team, because he doesn't do that. He just sits around and asks everybody else, what do you guys think we should do? Okay, take them. That's what I reported from somebody who was in the building. When it comes to whether or not, well, was Vrabel the GM? Was Rand the GM? It is reported as fact by Diana Rossini and Joe Rexrode in The Athletic that Vrabel went to Amy and asked Amy to be in control of the organization, and she said no. Vrabel wasn't the GM. Vrabel was the coach. This idea that we need proof that Rand picked Will Levis, it's just a cop-out. It's just a cop-out. And even if he didn't, do you see Rand have any interest in Bo Nix this year? Or Michael Penix? Or J.J. McCarthy? Because I can tell you right now, if I was with the team and I knew he stunk, the first thing I'd do is go find somebody better. John Elway took over the Denver Broncos. They had won a playoff game on the road, they had won a game at home against Pittsburgh. Tim Tebow was the quarterback. You guys remember that? And what is the first thing John Elway did? And Tim Tebow was popular. He went out and got Peyton Manning because he's like, I don't want Tebow playing quarterback. Rand doubled down on Levis and made Mason Rudolph the backup, a guy that you cannot, with a straight face, claim as a starting caliber quarterback. 615-737-1025. More of your phones to get to on this. So apparently a couple people have texted in. I guess Zack Lions wrote 7,000 words on why the Titans should keep Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan. I have not read it. Should we read it? Should we read it, like, again, as a group? Like, I haven't read this, so if I read it, it'll be the first time I read it. It'll be the first time you read it. It'll be the first time. Now, 7,000 words will take like 3 segments, so we probably have to
That's
just
a lot of words, yeah.
Cut through it. Should we do it? I'll think about it. 615-737-1025. Join us for the award-winning pregame show on Sunday, where we will be live out at Twin Peaks in Madison from 9:30 to 11:30 for the award-winning pregame show ahead of the Titans and the Colts. The award-winning pregame show is presented by Parman Tractor and Equipment, Sundeck Nashville, Sloan's Motorcycle ATV, and award-winning Blue Note Juke Joint and Blue Note Crossroads Bourbon.
And Rand is a tremendous person, as far as an evaluator and the relationships he has around the league. And we really wanted to allow him to flourish in that role.
What's the expectation we should be having for the Titans? Are we winning it all this year?
If we can put it all together, I think we have a chance. And obviously, I believe in Will Levis. It's a large reason why I took the job is that I think he's capable of being a really good player.
Earlier this week, I had Jeff Simmons in the office and just kind of getting his assessment of what he thought. And he felt really good, about the line as a whole.
The AI was used to help the doctors identify cancer in patients. And I was just fascinated by this. And so I took what was a football problem and we put it in the context of AI. And one of the problems that we have in football is we spend a lot of money on players that don't pan out.
Of every draft room I've been in, this was probably the most accurate board that I've ever been a part of.
I feel like when guys show up here now, guys feel confident that they can be themselves and that they can operate how they know they best operate to perform as good as they can on Sunday.
As far as Treylon's role, he's going to play everything. We've told him that from the beginning. He's had a really good offseason. I'm excited about what he can bring for us. I meant when I said that the other day that I think he's going to have a role to play.
Will Levis be the Titans' era's first 4,000-yard passer? And right now, the fans are believers. 78% of them say yes, he will. 22% say no and think it's a slam dunk.
Boy, what an off season we had around here, boy. The toxic positivity. Okay, so Zack Lions at stackingtheinbox.substack.com supposedly wrote 7,000 words clearing the smoke 2024 Titans regime, why logic and objectivity needs to be at the forefront of the discussion, and how those who lead you to patience with this 2024 Titans staff. I don't really know Zack Lions. I mean, I am familiar with some of his work. And again, he's kind of become more mainstream here lately. We'll see how that goes for him. But let's read the article and let's see. Again, this is a reason. I already know that it's a pro Carthon Callahan article, which means I'm going to disagree with it. But let's see what the points are. And let's read it together, shall we? Quote, the Titans being 3-11 sucks. There's just no way around it. The entire team is not living up to even the most modest expectations of them in 2024. However, as bad as it may seem on the surface, it's not as bad as people think. On the latest Titans Talkback, we had a caller call in and talk about fans and media seeing this season through frustration. I am going to tweak slightly what he said, but not enough to change the meaning. People are viewing this season through a lens of frustration, and they're not seeing everything clearly. Well, today we are going to the eye doctor and trying to find the right prescription to which to view the season and beyond with. I know there will be a lot of think pieces. He says that in quotation marks as if this is not a think piece, but there will be a lot of quote unquote think pieces that are just emotional reactions entrenched firmly in that Mike Vrabel should still be here. There will be radio shows and podcasts trying to get everyone into a frenzy because that's essentially what the media is sometimes. But I've always cut it straight with our readers and keep it objective, but also let you decide what to do with the information I give you. Some of you will come to this piece with your mind made up. Okay, enough with this. Let's get to the part. The blame game, he writes. This is going to span the 2020 Titans all the way through 2023. These are what I have heard from local and national media or have read in various articles. All of this is just for your information. Believe it or not, that's for you to decide. But this is what I have collected throughout the years of who is responsible for the ripple effect decisions of the franchise. None of these are my own reporting. Isaiah Wilson, 2 different people have gone on the airways and said Mike Vrabel is the guy who fell in love with and pushed for Isaiah Wilson. One person added Arthur Smith. I think they're talking about me. As that I was told that it was Vrabel and Arthur that loved Isaiah Wilson. A.J. Brown trade. John Robinson. Aaron Brewer and Andre Dillard. Mike Vrabel, according to multiple people. Mike Vrabel on Andre Dillard. Give me a break. Peter Skoronsky heard on the airwaves that there was a Skoronsky contingent, Vrabel, and a Zay Flowers one, Carthon, for a fact was used. Will Levis. This one here is tricky. We've heard that it was ownership inspired or a Mike Vrabel pick in terms of Levis being drafted. None of the rumors had been Carthon's guy or decision, but it has been reported by Paul Kaharski that everyone was on board with Levis as the choice there. Boy, this is really about me. Did you see what the second little header is?
No, I haven't opened it.
So the first was the blame game part. The second header is, like a bold title to the second part of the article. No toxic positivity. I feel like this is probably, most people are going to accuse me of seeing everything with two-tone blue glasses and putting everyone on other people. So to combat that right here, I'm going to lay out the things where this staff ultimately failed and not use hindsight. These were the things I disagree with at the time and still do. Think of these as bad process, bad result. Right tackle, he writes, edge rusher, Jaquan Jackson, the final 53, Traylon Burks over NWI, Elijah Molden, and their actions matching their words. In-game decisions as well go in here. False, he says. Penalties is a coaching stat. I mean, look, again, I don't want to put words into Floyd's mouth, but I have a hard time believing Floyd wouldn't put penalties on the coach.
Big coach.
I mean, I have a hard time believing that, again, I have a hard time believing Floyd Reese would accept being the most penalized team in the league and saying it's not the coach's fault.
It is weird how they're like trying to get a little bit of a head start on some of these false starts on the tackle, But yeah,
but false starts aren't the only penalties that the Titans commit.
Yeah.
They lead the league in penalties. They have more penalties
per
with
game
3
than
games
anybody.
to go than they did all of last year.
Not good.
Okay. This regime should not be allowed to pick the next quarterback, he writes. Why? Because Will Levis sucked and has always sucked. That is the only reason you really have to hang your hat on. It is ridiculous in every facet, Zack Lions writes. I have Justin Mello and even Canadians say something silly, telling me Brian Callahan doesn't get the benefit of the doubt because he believed in Levis. What the hell? What world are we living in right now? That is straight up illogical, Zack Lions writes. And from a place of emotion and pro-Vabel, it makes zero sense in any reality. Should Callahan have gone into the meeting with Adam Strunk, who said with bravado that Will Levis is the guy and said, yeah, this guy sucks, I can't fix him, 0 redeeming qualities? Or yeah, this guy sucks, choose him or me? What are we even doing here? That is a bad reason. And as we have established, we know that the main driver of Levis was not Carthon. Does that mean that he didn't see value in Levis whatsoever? No. But he did know enough not to draft him over Peter Skoronski, even though the team was in desperation. Didn't he just say that Skoronski was a Vrabel pick?
I missed the first half.
So he said Skoronski there was the Skoronski Vrabel clan, and there was Zay Flowers, the Carthon clan. Now, I've only heard it from Derek that Rand wanted to draft Zay Flowers, and I heard it after Skoronski stunk and Zay Flowers was good, which is very convenient to tell people. But
be cool to have Zay Flowers.
But again, this idea that, Rand was smart enough not to pick Levis over Peter Skoronski. And again, we don't know that Rand picked it. Give me a freaking break. Give me a break. To his credit, Brian Callahan tried. Yeah, well, here you go. Is Rand Carthon actually that bad in the Zack Lions piece? By the way, I'm skimming through a lot of this. Like, again, if you say to me that they are not responsible for drafting Levis or pumping Levis's tires or any, give me a break. Again, if Rand Carthon didn't pick Levis, then why did he not go get a better quarterback in here behind him so they could immediately get rid of him? Could you imagine if let's use Ryan Tannehill. If they had signed Ryan Tannehill to be the backup quarterback and Levis flips the ball against Chicago and rolls it to the Jets, Tannehill's the quarterback. You switch right there. But they didn't. They got Mason Rudolph. And you can't say they didn't have the money. They wasted $17 million on L'Jarius Sneed. And by the way, where's the talk of L'Jarius Sneed on here in our AI cancer determining model? Is Rand Carthon actually that bad? Zack Lions writes. Here is another one I can't wrap my head around. He writes, do you watch the games? Sure. If you continue to ignore all the information about 2023, then yeah, you may think Carthon is bad at his job. He's far from perfect, but he isn't as terrible as people say, and he isn't as bad as John Robinson, who along with Vrabel nuked this franchise with 3 straight dud draft classes. The 2023 draft class is a muddled mess due to a power struggle and a lack of structure. So it stands to reason that the 2024 draft class is actually better than 2023. So let's look at the 2024 draft class. First, the Titans rookie class has played a total of combined 33 500 snaps. That's the 5th highest mark by any 2024 class league-wide. Washington, the Giants, the Rams, and the Raiders rank ahead of them. That shows just how much they've had to lean on this class. But let's look at each individual pick and whether they're a hit or a bust or undecided in 1 year compared to their draft status. Latham, hit. Sweat, hit. Cedric Gray, undecided. Ian, I don't know if I could say undecided for Cedric Gray.
I mean, technically, probably incomplete.
Hit for Tavondre Sweat, a nose tackle?
Not a strikeout.
No, but not a hit, like a legitimate
single?
hit.
A single? That's a hit.
A hit on a draft pick is not like that's like would you say LaShawn Sims or Tajay Sharp were hits?
Maybe Tajay Sharp, considering he was a 5th
LaShawn
rounder.
Sims started for 2 years at corner.
No, Sims was not good. And I guess Sharp's probably not a hit either.
But again, those guys were like 5th and 6th round picks.
Yeah.
So that's not a hit. Starters
so.
in the 5th round are not hits, but Tavondre Sweat's a hit.
Those guys aren't starters.
LaShawn Sims
He started out of desperation.
Tajay Sharp started as a rookie on a 9-win team.
Uh-huh. And then never heard from him
Jalen
again.
Harrell, hit. James Williams, hit. Zack Lions, you are a freaking Bobo. This is ridiculous. James Williams, hit. Hit on James Williams. What? What? Give me a break. Oh my goodness. And then he goes through each one. Good process, good results. Number 1, Calvin Ridley. Boy, I tell you, he's just a good process, bad results. Lloyd Cushenberry and L'Jarius Sneed. So they think the L'Jarius Sneed thing was a good process. How is this at all objective? You're telling me they hit on James Williams and Jalen Harrell. That they hit on them. Ian, can you think of one thing that Jalen Harrell has done this season?
Incomplete. I would put those as incomplete.
And that Cedric Gray is undecided. He's never played.
I would also that makes sense. Undecided because he hasn't played. It's been 1 year.
This stuff is a joke. This is a joke. Zack Lions should be embarrassed by himself with this. Like Jim Wyatt works for the team and would not write this bullcrap. That's embarrassing. And look, I don't know Zack Lions personally. I'm sure he's a good guy. I've heard the post-game shows that he does, and it's very homerific. It has been since Tom Brady throws those same interceptions that Will Levis threw against the Bears in week 1. But I'm going to look at the camera, and I'm going to be honest right here for a second. Zach, if you want to be a grown-up, real media person that people respect, you can't say things like Jalen Harrell is a hit of a draft choice. You can't say things like L'Jarius Sneed's acquisition was a good process. You can't say that, well, this guy, some random guy said that Ran Carthon didn't want to draft the guy who sucks, so he must not have drafted that guy. You can't say that. You have to call it like it is. You have to admit when you're wrong, which I'll do. But you can't write 7,000 words and say, this is the most objective piece. Ran Carthon should keep his job because he nailed James Williams and he nailed Jalen Harrell. Is this a joke? It's a joke. And it's embarrassing to the local Nashville media for you to write some bullcrap like this. You should be ashamed of yourself. This is terrible. I mean, this is again, yeah, I mean, this was a really good process that got them Calvin Ridley. They just threw as much money as they could at him, and he's fine, but to act like that's a reason to keep a job. Drafted a defensive lineman with the 38th pick who has 1 sack, and you're telling me that's a great draft choice? Give me a freaking break. What a joke. 615-737-1025, Stillman and Company. I wanted to drive the game.
There are a lot of folks who think this team is soft physically and mentally. How would you respond to that idea?
I mean, you really want to get me going today? Yeah, I think, to be honest with you, I think it's complete and total bull. If you want my honest opinion, these guys are tough, man. They go after it every day. They play hard as hell. And there's at no point have we ever put on tape at any point this season that this is a soft football team. Like I can't even wrap my mind around how that would even be a conversation. I mean, just because we don't win games doesn't mean we're soft. These guys play their ass off. They play hard. They play physical. You can ask any team that plays against us that when they come off the field, they know they played us. Yeah, that makes me relatively angry that would be some presumption. That means you just don't watch the you don't do anything about it, that you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're looking at. So I won't stand for, I'm not going to stand for anybody calling this football team soft. I think that's so if there's opinions out there that feel that way, then they don't know anything about NFL football. So I'd like you to walk in there and call one of these guys soft and see what happens. This is not a soft football team at all, mentally or physically. And I think one of the things mentally that's really been impressive about the team is that the way that they keep fighting through the way that this season has gone. They've not shown at any point that they're not up to the task. They come out every day and work. They have, I'm really, you're going to really get me going now. These guys come out here and they do everything possible to win games. And if there's any assumption anywhere that's outside of this building, again, we don't focus on all those things, but there's no possible explanation to say that this team is soft any way, shape, or form, mentally or physically. And the way that they go about their work it's insulting to me, to them, to everyone that works here. So I'm not that no chance ever in hell would I ever admit that to be the case, and neither would anybody in this locker room. So you can kind of shove that one right up your to be honest. So
you told him, Brian Callahan. I would just like to state for the record, Brian Callahan's the coach that told us at training camp that it was too hot for Will Levis and Calvin Ridley to connect on passes. And now when it comes to, hey, is the team too soft? If you say that, you do not watch these games. This team's doing everything they can. Okay. They've won 3 games. And I think, again, Brian Callahan, there's going to be a lot of talk about what Brian Callahan said, and there's going to be a lot of talk about he stood up and he showed and he had some serious fake tough guy vibes for me today. When Mr. It was too hot outside to catch the ball is now telling me you can't call the team soft. And when he said, I dare you to go in the locker room and call these guys soft, it really makes me want to go in there, go up to PT and say, hey, PT, I think you're soft. It really makes me want to do it. One texter says, the Titans' poor play is insulting to me, Brian. One texter says, I'd already read the Zack Lions article. When you said that you were going to read it for the first time on air, I got incredibly excited. Thank you for reading because it lived up to expectations. Look, man, I don't know Zack Lions. I'm sure he's a good dude. But again, if you want to be in the big leagues, you cannot say stuff that like even the team would say that's a little too over the top for us. And that's what his 7,000 word piece was. Ian, I haven't seen it. Somebody texted and said Diego Pavia won his lawsuit, so he'll be Vandy's quarterback next year.
That is true.
That's good.
Well, I guess he'll be Vandy's quarterback. He was reinstated for one more season.
Great. Sam C. Ellerich on Twitter says, my initial impression is the injunction is limited to Pavia because that's all he asked for, but the court leaves things wide open for other athletes in similar challenges. Good for Vandy. We'll see where that goes. Jared versus Joe is next. The final Jared versus Joe of 2024. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company 1025, 1063 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. It is a Wednesday at 5 o'clock. So even though Joe Rexrode is off for the rest of the week because he's going to go cover the college football playoff, and Caroline Fenton will surely be covering the college football playoff this weekend as well, they will still be here for Jared versus Joe, even though Brian Callahan poo-pooed in his panties today at his press conference. They're still here for Jared versus Joe, even though Will Levis is on the bench and Mason Rudolph is in for 3 meaningless games. They are still here for Jared versus Joe. Caroline is here. Hello, Caroline.
Hello, how we doing?
Outstanding. Obviously, last week I was not on Jared versus Joe. You guys knew why. You didn't share why, which I appreciated at the time. But I'm sure that was a lot of fun. And Joe Rexrode is with us on the program. Joe, I just want you to know that yesterday morning I got a call from my dad, who got a call from somebody who said, you have got to hear what Joe Rexrode said on the radio. So I listened to the Rex rant, and I heard what you said about me and my son and my family, and it was very, very nice of you and much appreciated.
Well, that's nice. You know, I'm confused today. Like, so are you like every other day you're going to be a dad, and then the next day you're going to do the radio show, and then you're going to be the dad? Like, what are we doing here? You working every other day?
No, Joe.
Like, what's happening?
No, Joe. I'll be on the air tomorrow and Friday. Unlike you, I'll work more this week than you do. And then I'm off all next week.
Okay. All right. You're just kind of confusing everybody, but that's good to know.
We got checkups and doctors, it's not like, that's just you leave the hospital and now you're back. But, the Bengals game was bad enough. I had to be on the air Monday. Okay, it's time for Jared versus Joe.
Jared Stillman versus Joe Rexrode. Now on Stillman and Company. On ESPN 1025 The Game.
Jared versus Joe is presented by Pella Windows and Doors in Nashville. Caroline, go.
Well, it feels only appropriate to ask the question of the day, and I sure hope that I don't have to clean your mouths out with soap, that Brian Callahan's mouth needed to be washed out with soap after answering this question. But Joe, we'll start with you. Are the Titans soft?
So here's the thing. Before I get into that, I have to admit, I understand that this is like from a Mike Herndon piece. Right? I'm right about that, right? At paulkarski.com. Is that correct?
So when I heard the question,
I saw Callahan's rant. I saw,
I heard the question, so Easton Freeze asked the question, but I had read like an hour beforehand the Herndon article in which he called the team soft and referenced Jarvis Brownlee Jr. saying it was too cold and Skoronski saying they don't handle adversity well. And the fact that Callahan is soft and Vrabel was the opposite. Like, I read that article. Literally, Joe, in one ear, out the other, didn't even think about it until I heard Easton ask the question. And when there's like a story that's written, like Gentry's article last week, which I assume everybody here read, or when Trevor criticized Traylon Burks and everybody heard it, no disrespect to Herndon or to Paul's website, but like that's behind a paywall. And it wasn't something that I heard everybody talking about that would lead to like Brian Callahan having to address it. So I think that's where it came from, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's where it came from. I haven't seen the actual line. I mean, so you read it, so it just said at some point this was a soft team. I mean, that's
well. So in fact, I'll read it to you directly because when I heard it, it did pop into my head about what I had read an hour before from Herndon, and I sent it to Vingan. Quote: "While we're on coaching, I think something must be said about how mentally weak this team appears to be. We've heard comments from Peter Skoronski early in the season talking about the team's inability to respond to adversity. Then there was this from rookie corner Jarvis Brownlee Jr. suggesting that the team struggled at the start of the game in Washington because it was cold outside. It was 42 degrees at kickoff. There is a certain softness to this team that hasn't been there in recent years. And while players absolutely bear some responsibility there, it is often said that a team takes on the personality of its head coach. And while I'm not saying Callahan is soft necessarily, he's certain shown some fire on the sidelines at times this season. I do think this team's culture permits that softness to exist in ways it wasn't allowed to under Vrabel's leadership."
Okay. So here, my answer to Caroline's question, this is a bad team. Okay. like I heard, but like Callahan gets into like, you go in the locker room and tell, like, yeah, sure. I mean, obviously they'll kick your butt. I mean, like if we're saying, are they soft compared to some pencil neck reporter geeks? No, they're very not soft. They could beat the crap out of all of us. Great. Congratulations. I mean, this is like when Brennan one time, we're watching the Titans, he's like, Deion Lewis is trash. I'm like, Brennan, he's one of the like 50 best running backs in the world.
Deion Lewis was pretty cheeks though.
Well, yeah, but you know what I mean? Like, it's like, I mean, yeah, he's not a great NFL back. He's about to be out of here. He's not
fumbled
as good
the ball all the
like,
time.
He's not trash relative to society, right? So are the Titans soft, like relative to NFL teams? I will say this too. Like the weather thing is kind of dumb. I mean, it's just a dumb thing that Brownlee said. Like, do we actually think the Titans were over there like, oh my God, it's 44, Jarvis, but we can't say anything? I mean, it's just a stupid thing a rookie said after a game, right? So like Herndon including that, I think is kind of I don't really buy that. But I think there's something to, like you said, Skoronski talking about the team not responding. I think there is something to, and look, I'll give you credit for this, Jared, something to the not maybe laying the law down a little more on Simmons in the preseason when he's out doing, fighting, but also like trying to like throw Buck, into the river or whatever. I mean, like, I think there's an element, and it's obviously now compared to Vrabel, who of course a few months ago was like, man, this open free, everybody's friends. This is awesome. This is a new era. Now it's like, God, I miss our tough coach, right? So is this team soft? I don't know. I mean, they're not good. They're bad. Are they physically soft? Like, is Jeff Simmons soft because of the Buck stuff? I thought that was dumb. No, he's not soft.
I think he's soft.
Sensitive the same? Well, okay, but is sensitive the same as soft? Is overly sensitive and reactive the same as soft? If that's the case, then I'll say sure.
All right.
But I don't think they're the same thing.
So I would agree with you. I think the big issue with the Titans is that they suck, not that they're soft. That I think is the big, it's a poorly constructed football team and it's not very well coached. And I think that is pretty obvious. But let's talk about Callahan here for a second. I think if there's any weak link in terms of this team's toughness, it's the coach. Callahan's getting up there and Johnny F-bomb, but I'm like, he was the guy that told us it was too hot at training camp for Levis to connect with Calvin Ridley. He's the guy that when Levis threw the interception against the Seattle Seahawks in the training camp, I'm sitting there waiting for him to go, all right, blow the whistle, do it again. Levis throws the pick. I think it was Devin Witherspoon got it the first play of the 2-minute drill. Levis throws the pick. Devin Witherspoon gets the ball. They run it over to Jamal Adams. Everybody has a good time. I am waiting for Callahan to blow the whistle and tell everybody, do it again. And he doesn't. 1 rep. 2 days of joint practices against the Seahawks. 1 rep. 1 rep in the 2-minute drill, an interception, and he doesn't go out there and tell him to do it again. And then he's like, oh, we'll fix it. It'll be fine. I think PT is soft. I think Simmons was. So I actually think Simmons has been hardened a little bit this year. I think he's calloused up a little bit after his proclamation that nobody runs on the Tennessee Titans, only to have Malik come in here and run all over them. Again, I think the problem with the team is that they're bad, but this is not a punch you in the mouth football team, and everybody knows it because we've seen punch you in the mouth Titans teams for the last 8 years since Mike Mularkey became the coach. So are they soft? Again, I don't think that's the root of their problems, but I think Brian Callahan was too much Mr. Nice Guy, and I'm not buying the curse words to make up for it now.
Yeah, look, are they like we're going to compare them to last year? So Derrick Henry, you immediately are probably a softer football team when he leaves your football team, right? I mean, he was the ultimate hammer and is that for the Ravens. I'm trying to think of who else. Here's an example of
the organization being soft. And I think the organization can be called into this focus because Callahan said everybody in the building would be offended by that or whatever it was he said. When Will Levis threw the ball in the lake during OTAs, and Jim Wyatt wrote it in his wrap-up of what happened that day, and we laughed. Oh, my God. Chris Sanders and I, we laughed about the ball landing in the lake. The Titans called up and said, it bounced in the lake, guys. And then Jim Wyatt edited the story and said that and it took out the ball bouncing in the lake. That's soft. Did it end up in the lake? I've never seen ball. I've never seen a ball end up in the lake. Did it end up in the lake? Stop acting soft about it. Every time they had a bad day of practice, it was, well, Denard's defense is really good. Like, when you just ignore reality, like, that's kind of, we don't want to hear negative, la, 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 la. That's what soft people do.
Oh, listen.
I love that story.
If we're taking the whole organization into account, soft is Charmin. Okay, I mean, I'm talking about the team. The team's bad more than it's soft. But yes, if we're taking into account an organization with an owner who just got the most public money ever for an NFL stadium and won't even take a question from a reporter, yes, that is the definition of soft.
Or the GM that doesn't do press conferences.
There's that too.
So then I think the answer is yes.
If we're doing organization, it's an easy yes.
That is so true.
But I mean, Callahan was asked today about
He's asked about a team. So, and Callahan, too, I understand, like, that's one of the biggest insults you can pose. So for Callahan, he probably feels like the manager that runs out of the dugout that's going to yell at the umpire, even though the ball might have been in the strike zone. It's like, well, I'm going to get run today, boys, because it's a day game after a night game. And we've lost 2 in a row to St. Louis. So let's go ahead and get thrown out here. I think there was probably a little bit of that. Caroline, what's next?
The ball didn't bounce our way is peak
soft.
Week old baby Jackson Stillman poops kind of soft. Jared, I will ask you. It's a question that I've asked on this here debate several times, but it bears asking again. Jared, should the Titans clean house after this season?
Yes. In fact, Robbie Stanley, Joe, made the best argument when he said, if you sat down with these guys and said, okay, why should I keep you? What would their answer be? Again, I mean, this was all Vrabel's fault, right? This time last year when they fired Vrabel, it's all Vrabel's fault. Give Rand a chance. They're worse. The draft picks ain't that good. I hear, well, this year's draft was good because you got a run-stuffing DT. Like, that's it? Like, you got a tackle that might actually be a right tackle and not a left tackle? Who's been awful the last 4 weeks, and I'm supposed to say, oh, yeah. I mean, that's the same as John Robinson drafting an all-pro with his first pick. Well, give me a freaking break. And again, like, I hear Callahan today talking about, we need a spark for Mason Rudolph in these last 3 games. These last 3 meaningless games, now we need a spark? Give me a break. It's a joke. It's a joke. It starts with the owner. Everybody knows it, and it works its way on down. And while you can't fire the owner, you can clean house, bring in an experienced football person. And I will say this.
You can count on the owner to make some more awesome decisions.
If she hires,
there you go.
If she hires
on that owner to be courageous and make good decisions.
If she hires Rick Spielman, Thomas Dimitrov, Mark Dominic, or
all of them.
If she hires any of these guys, your
favorite podcast, bring in all your favorite podcasts. Let's do it.
I mean, I would.
Yeah, not Michael Lombardi.
I would tell you that, Rick Spielman was pretty good in Minnesota, and that Justin Jefferson's pretty good player, and that Christian Darrisaw is pretty good player. And so
you want to go through his bad stuff? You want to go through his bad stuff?
I'd have a hard time saying that Thomas Dimitrov, who got a 28-3 lead in the Super Bowl, was a bad general manager over all those years in Atlanta. My point is this. The Titans are a complete and total embarrassment right now, and if Rick Spielman was running the Titans, I can promise you, would they win the Super Bowl? I don't know. But would they be a complete and total embarrassment? No. That I am certain of. Yes, clean house.
So Carol, if you're obviously asking this question again, you already know Jared's answer, so you're just hoping that I'll finally say yes, clean house? I mean, this is another predetermined.
I'm not
Jared
hoping
wins
that you're doing anything, Joe. This is a show for the people. This is not so I know where you stand.
You already know.
This is so you can debate what you think.
Well, I think it's fair to say that over the last couple of weeks,
your mind?
Yeah, like again, Levis, they pumped him up. They drafted Levis. They hired a coach to work with Levis, and now they're benching him. And that's not going to change your opinion at all.
Since last time the question to me is, so clean house across the board. I will separate them. Okay. No, I don't think that Brian Callahan should be fired after this year. So that's cleaning house. That's him. And the front office, nothing has changed since we talked last time. Like, the biggest issue is the two things. One is the Snead thing looks bad right now, and right tackle was not addressed, right? I mean, what's really changed? I don't even know last time where we were on the Levis roller coaster. But
they've given up on the quarterback, like officially given up on him. The guy they drafted.
Okay, I understand that.
So they busted on a quarterback, and it's now official that it's a bust, and you're not. That doesn't affect you at all.
I mean, so a few weeks ago, were we all like, man, this Levis looks like he just might be the franchise quarterback? I mean, it's looked bad all year. Just because Callahan decided to bench him, and by the way, that's more on the coach of this. It's obvious spin, but this whole, oh yeah, we gotta let's go by merit in the locker room and see if we can get it going here at the end. I mean, that's just spin because he has given up on it. But that's the coach. No, there's no new. Again, would I clean house? I would not clean house. Would I feel good about going into next year? I don't feel good about anything. If you want to know what the Titans should do, the owner should sell the team, but she probably won't do that.
Okay, so would you fire Rand Carthon now that his handpicked quarterback is a bust?
I mean, like, you think that this thing now all of a sudden changes the math. This changes the calculus completely because Will Levis has now been benched for the rest of the year.
I think it's a pretty big data point.
I mean, the data points, the heavy data points on Levis were months ago. So no, I'm not any different. They get another offseason.
We were talking 2 weeks ago about whether or not he's made enough improvement to be the quarterback next year, and now they've officially waved the white flag on him, and you're saying that that's not a big data point, that the guy that they drafted, that they told everybody was a franchise quarterback, that they were so convinced was their guy that they didn't bring in a real backup quarterback. You're saying that that's not a huge data point, that the handpicked coach to develop the quarterback for the general manager who picked this quarterback now waving the flag, announcing that they got it wrong is not a big data point.
I'm not saying it's not a data point. I'm saying the bigger data points on Levis came earlier in the season. I mean, we were talking about, gosh, he's played better for a few weeks. Maybe he could have another year while they try to figure out what's next, right? And they could try to build, do other things rather than worry about quarterback. That's as good as it got this year. So, the Levis stuff was ugly early, and you gave up on him then, and you can't sit here now and act like this is, oh my God, what a revelation. I mean, this is just Callahan, and basically what I think this is the organization preparing everyone for them to come back, because they will be back. Kind of saying, if you really want to look at why this season went down in the tubes, look at number 8, everybody.
Okay,
we'll get that right, and everything will be better.
So wait a minute. They will be back? You sound 100% certain on this.
Oh, I don't know that for sure, but I'm still like at 2.6% they get fired. I think they'll all be back.
Oof. Talk about a nuclear meltdown in the Stillman and Company show that will happen that day. I mean, it might happen. I don't know.
Wait.
But here's what I will say.
Wait.
Here's what I will say, though, in regards to this idea that, well, Jared, you were out on Levis a while ago, and so now them officially benching him shouldn't be a data point. It's
a data point.
For me, it's not so much that, oh, wow, they benched Levis, and now my entire outlook on Levis has changed. It's not that. It's that now they can't use any air of, well, let's see. We're not going to make our decision today. It's too early, Jared. It's too early to make the call on Levis, Jared. You can't say that now. Like, the people that have said that to me, they can't say it now that he's officially been benched. And also, doesn't it look kind of stupid that Brian Callahan's up there talking about the importance of winning a meaningless game and the spark that they need for the Indy game by changing the quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, it's just words to replace the truth of, I just don't think he's good.
And then what's the benefit of Mason Rudolph playing quarterback then?
I mean, so they can win games and screw up their draft positioning?
All right. Yay. Yes. Fire everybody. This is a gong show, and it's only going to get worse. More Jared versus Joe to continue next on Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game.
Jared Stillman versus Joe Rexrode. Now on Stillman and Company.
On ESPN
102.5 The Game.
Jared versus Joe is presented by Pillow Windows and Doors of Nashville. Caroline, go.
Okay, Joe, you start. Obviously, Will Levis has been benched. Where does trading up to draft Will Levis in the second round of the 2023 NFL draft rank amongst mistakes that this regime has made?
Let's see here. I mean, off the top of my head, I guess I'd have to put it number one now, right? I mean, obviously, they at that point, again, you say this regime, and I think of Vrabel and Tannehill, and boy, would Tannehill sure have liked another player to help him in the second round, just like he sure would have liked another player to help him in the third round the year before. But I think Skoronski is obviously in the mix at 11 last year. I think that Skoronski is at least on his way to he'll be a starter in the league for a long time, is my guess. How good will he be? I don't know. It doesn't look great right now, but he's a starting NFL guard. And, the Snead thing is right now is a huge question. I mean, next year, obviously if you get to next year and Snead can't play, but we don't know the answer on that. So, I mean, right now that looks like it could be a contender when you talk about giving up a third round pick when there is this injury history, which of course is what the previous regime made huge mistakes on. But yeah, I mean, I think you'd have to, it's a contender probably with Snead for number one. I mean, I'm trying to think of, and then I guess the non-addressing, the belief that Petit Frere / Jalen Duncan, those guys, I mean, that's a strong one too, though. NPF. That's a strong one, though. That's a strong one. It's those three. I mean, those are the three. The Levis thing, it's like, I mean, obviously it's a second round pick, and like you said, you moved up, and he has flamed out here in his first year as a starter. I mean, I guess quarterbacks fail so often. It's what I expect. It's what everyone should expect. Quarterbacks mostly fail, but I'll still put it number one.
Caroline, define the administration for me. Are we including the 2023? Vrabel. Don't blame Rand. That wasn't his fault. Blame Vrabel. Are we including that too?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so I actually don't even think that Will Levis was the worst decision of the 2023 draft. I don't even think it was the second worst decision of the 2023 draft. And I'm dead serious about this. I think the worst decision was Skoronski at 11. That is a premium pick. Even in the worst drafts, like the 2022 draft, we were told, hey, some NFL teams are telling the reporters that there's only 16 guys with a first round grade. Usually there's about 20 to 24 guys in any draft that have a first round grade. So when you're picking at 31, you're probably not picking a first round grade player, but you're picking the 31st best player. When you have the 11th pick, even in a weak draft, that should be a first round caliber player, a first round premium player. That is where you draft a pass rusher, a receiver, a tackle, a corner. Again, you're probably not going to get a first round quarterback there, although Bo Nix went at 12 this year. You're probably not going to get a high end quarterback with the 11th pick. But they took a guard, and they took a guard who sucks. That's number one. That's the most premium asset they've used over the 2 years outside of Latham, and they used it on a guard, and a guard who sucks. I also actually have a bigger issue with the Tajay Spears draft pick than I do with the Will Levis draft pick. Will Levis, you draft a quarterback in the second round. Chances are you're sticking your flag down and saying, okay, this is our guy. But given where they were, it made sense. You draft Levis. I thought Vrabel handled this poorly, but you announced that Tannehill is the starting quarterback, and you sit and develop and see where it goes. Tampa Bay's done this with Kyle Trask. And again, he's a backup. But they realized it, and instead of running him out there with nobody behind him, they signed Baker Mayfield, and they had a quote-unquote competition that Baker won. Tajay Spears was a top 100 pick. on a team that had holes all across the board. Admittedly, Vrabel said, we have holes we've got to fill. They drafted a third down running back that you can get for the league minimum, whether it is Jeremy McNichols or Dontrell Hilliard or whomever. They drafted a third down running back with the best running back in the NFL on the team. And then when they let the best running back leave, they spent $8 million to get another running back because apparently this top 100 running back isn't an every down back. That is a horrible use of a draft pick. Horrible. And so I really believe that even though Levis was a bust, like you're taking a quarterback that has some first round traits that maybe you can develop, that I don't have a problem with. There's going to be some hit and some miss there. And I think the Titans, not having a right tackle helped screw him up. I thought the Titans not addressing wide receiver last year until DeAndre Hopkins would be more incompetent than the decision to draft Levis. I understand the decision to draft Levis. It didn't work out for a myriad of reasons, but it's not incompetent like drafting a guard with the 11th pick who's never played guard before is incompetent. Like taking a third down back in the top 100 with multiple holes across the board is incompetent. So I really don't even think Levis is not having a right tackle. Something I learned on the first day of football school you have to do is incompetent. So I really believe that Levis is further down on the list than most people will think when they'll remember this as, oh yeah, they went with Levis just because he plays quarterback.
So I just want to make sure I have it right then. So Levis is only third, and you barely even got into right tackle after telling the right tackle story 150 times. And Levis is down the list, but he's also the reason why everyone should be freaking out right now because they bench him this week.
Well,
I want to make sure I've got those things right.
They
right?
put
he's not that big of a.
They put all their eggs in his basket. They didn't put their eggs in his basket when they drafted him. They put all of their eggs in his basket when they let Ryan Tannehill leave, when they told everybody that we have a good young quarterback fans, when they pumped his tires and they brought in no competition behind him. They did what the Atlanta Falcons did last year with Desmond Ridder. And I begged the Falcons to sign Sam Darnold as the backup just in case it doesn't work out with Desmond Ridder, then you can go to Darnold. And I think Arthur and Darnold would have been fine with that team that they have in Atlanta. Instead, no. They get a Scarbini backup in Taylor Heineke, and he does what Scarbini backups do, which is stink. And now Arthur's out of a job because they believed in Ridder too much. That is where this team messed up more so than the drafting of Levis. The drafting of Levis, again, there's no way in my mind that he wasn't 33rd on a board or something like that. It was a fine pick at the time. Now they've screwed it up, but as far as the idea that like, oh, that was horrible, everybody. No. Now, the way that they treated him after his couple of wins last year, that was over the top. And the fact that they didn't bring in a real backup quarterback was a bad decision. But drafting him, to me, it's not as incompetent. Like, I still don't understand the Tajay Spears pick. Do you guys understand the Tajay Spears pick?
I mean, at the time, I thought
egregious.
I thought he would be good. I mean, he obviously has not been nearly as good as, and in fact, at times last year, I thought he looked like he had a chance to be good.
But a backup running back on a team with no tackle?
Well, a backup running back on a team that knows it's about to not have its starting running back.
Right, but then this guy wasn't good enough that they had to go pay $8 million for another running back.
Right, but I mean, you're asking about what I thought at the time. At the time, I guess the big question was, does it matter to have an ACL or not? But at this point, I would tend to agree that he, obviously he's not great. He's okay.
And when we're listing off these terrible regime decisions, I mean, Andre Dillard is absolutely towards the top of this list. That 2023 team had no chance to compete the second they committed to him at left tackle. No chance.
And I agree, but this is also where we get into, again, like some of these things, you do have to put some on Vrabel, right? Like some of those old things, it's harder when you say this regime. And I'm not saying this is really the first year for Rand, like, other people do. I'm not saying that, but like Vrabel's a testimonial on behalf of Andre Dillard. Go back and listen to that.
No, I mean, I'm not saying that but Vrabel wasn't the general manager.
Sure.
And so that's where a GM has to say, like, this guy is a train wreck, Mike. I know you liked him coming out of college, but he stinks.
I think the most egregious thing at the time was drafting Tajay Spears over a wide receiver.
I mean, that was just ridiculous. Like, again, a backup running back on a team that has Derrick Henry. Like, if you're doing that, he's got to become Alvin Kamara. And Tajay Spears, again, the next year you used $8 million to go get another running back. Just a terrible use of resources. I mean, so to me, again, I understand the Levis pick. Like, it didn't work out, but I understand the pick more so than it was a guard with the 11th overall pick in the draft. Quickly, last one, Caroline.
Okay, Jared, you go first. Jeremy Fowler reported that the Titans could potentially be in the market for Aaron Rodgers. Should they be?
You know what's funny is if you're on the hot seat, and there's no way that if Rand and Callahan come back that they're not on the hot seat next year. I think we can all agree on that they have to win right away. And it looks like Sam Darnold is going to get franchised in Minnesota. Whether he's the quarterback or he gets traded is a different discussion. You're not going to be able to get the two quarterbacks because the Giants and the Raiders are already basically telling everyone they're going to take them. So now it's Daniel Jones, Mac Jones, Tannehill's not coming back. I mean, if your job was on the line, would you not say, well, it worked with Russell Wilson and the Steelers. Let's try it. That's the best I have for you. I think it would be a disaster. But again, it's either that or Daniel Jones. So at least you got a shot of Rodgers reverting to being good.
Yeah, I wouldn't touch that. He's not good anymore. I mean, that's probably,
neither was Russell, but Russell's good now.
Along with the entire circus that comes with it. But no, I would not do it. And here's the thing about that whole saving your job. So if you're Amy Adams Strunk then, and we're playing this out that these guys are keeping their jobs, you're okay with that? You're okay? Yeah, these guys will just throw some Hail Mary or some Aaron Rodgers crap. I'll be fine if we go 9-8 next year and have the circus of Aaron Rodgers. That'll be enough to save these guys' job. Is that really going to do it?
What are the other options? Is Daniel Jones going to save your job? Is Jalen Milroe going to save your job?
I don't know, but my point is, if you're Amy Adams Strunk, aren't you like, we need to talk about this organizationally? What is the best direction? Not just for like to try to be not embarrassing next year, but also like to long-term have answers, right? Like you're just going to let your people just go get whoever just so that they can get a sugar high and save their job for another year?
So if Rand Carthon has to win in order to keep his job, and you're the owner of the team, you then go to Rand Carthon and say, but I don't want you to do things that are going to give you the most amount of wins this year. I want you to plan for the long term. So if you only win 5 games this year, I'm still going to fire you, but it's better long term for the team.
Well, I mean, you're not going to say that you're going to fire him. You just tell them
because he's not going to do that. Like he's not going to do that. Again, you could sit down with him and say, Rand, I want you to make the best decisions for the long-term interest. But if he knows he's getting fired if he doesn't win this year, then every decision he makes is going to be catered towards winning this year.
Well, Aaron Rodgers is a terrible idea. Big no.
What are your other options?
Sam Darnold.
The question is, Kirk Cousins. I mean,
Your
the
guy.
question is Aaron Rodgers. No.
I mean, I think Darnold's getting tagged in Minnesota. So that's like last year when everyone was like, $100 million in cap space. We're going to get T. Higgins, Jared. I'm like, you're not going to get T. Higgins. Caroline, who wins this week?
I'm really just perplexed by your Aaron Rodgers take. Like, I understand that it's not just in a vacuum, Aaron Rodgers, yes or no. But
I don't want, trust me, I don't want Aaron Rodgers, but who gives you a bet? Like, again,
that would be an absolute disaster. That is like Rand Carthon firing himself. That's like Rand Carthon saying, hey, no thanks. I actually don't really like it here in Nashville. I'll go to a Taylor Swift concert somewhere else.
Who do you?
It is a horrendous idea.
Sell tickets to a Taylor Swift concert somewhere else. Who do you think gives you a better chance to win 8 or 9 games, which would be enough after 3 wins to show progress to keep your job? Aaron Rodgers or Jalen Milroe?
Well, it would have to be Aaron Rodgers, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to do it.
Again, I wouldn't do it either. I'm just telling you, like, plus, here's the other thing. Fowler's the one who reported that the Titans were going to Rudolph. Fowler's got hooks in the organization. I don't think Fowler's just making this up. that they could be interested in Aaron Rodgers. I think Aaron Rodgers might be the Hail Mary that they are going to try to pitch to this owner, which tells you how stupid they are.
It's a Hail Mary. That's for sure. But that's a doozy of a take, but I do have to say overall, Jared does win. And this is why, Joe, because I know you're going to pout about it. It's not because you said you wouldn't clean house at the end of the season. It's because I don't know why you wouldn't. Your answer for why you wouldn't clean house is, well, is firing them going to fix it? I don't know if it's going to fix it or not, but I know that holding on to this entire regime for yet another year isn't going to fix things. So, Jared.
How do you know that? You do know that? Really? You know what they're going to do?
Why would I feel good about this running it back next season?
Aaron Rodgers.
This team's terrible.
I didn't say feel good. Who said feel good? There's no feel good in any of this. There's no feel good in anything about this organization right now.
So you just hold on to what's not working?
You hire people to do a job, and you give them a chance to do the job.
They gave him a chance. They made it worse.
That's another offseason.
Why do I have to waste an offseason of my life, Joe, just so we can make sure for certain that Rand Carthon's incompetent?
You're going to have to. I'm here for that show. I can't wait.
Oh, I'm going to
go wait to the day that
But for Jared versus Joe in 2025, guys, enjoy the college football playoff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'd like to congratulate myself on an end-of-the-year victory for Jared versus Joe. 1-0 in the life of Jack Stillman. More Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. No better way to celebrate the latest victory in Jared versus Joe than by visiting Brewster's Real Ice Cream in Hendersonville. That's this week's Nashville's best deal. Brewster's offers handcrafted cakes, pies, and ice cream flavors of peppermint Oreo, eggnog, and gingerbread man. Enjoy the magic of homemade happiness this season. Visit theGameNashville.com/deals now to get half off a $50 gift card while supplies last. We went a little long there in Jared versus Joe, so let's give something away just to make you feel better. Be caller 5 right now at 615-737-1025, and you'll win a 4-pack of tickets to the TransPerfect Music City Bowl game at Nissan Stadium on Monday, December 30th, and we will wrap up Stillman and Company next. 1025 The Game.
Lafreniere throws the puck in front, deflected away. Under 10 seconds to go. Sissons backhands it. Goes wide of the goal. Marchessault takes it from behind. Gives the puck over now for Forsberg, and that'll do it. Predators come away with their third shutout win of the year. UC Saros getting congratulated by his teammates as the Predators beat the New York Rangers 2-0.
Big win for the Preds last night. Smashville Live follows us immediately at Brewhouse South in Cool Springs at 6 o'clock. Kevin Gravel and Adam Wilsby, who was the first star of the game, and if there was a game ball or a game puck or whatever you want to call it, awarded after the game last night, it would be him with that sweet, sick move and that beautiful goal. So I did go to the Predators game last night. My girlfriend's dad and I, we had to get out of the house for an evening. So
yes.
And, you know, they're Canadian. So we went to the game and we had a great time and the Predators won. And I would just like to say this. A week ago today, my son is now a week old. And a week ago today, we woke up at about 3 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday, and it was pretty obvious to us that we were having a child. And it was like, okay, let's get our stuff to the hospital in the car. Let's get ready. Let's go. But I looked at my phone, Ian, and I saw that the Predators had lost.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, oh, God, 8 in a row. 8 in a row. Thursday night. We spent 2 nights in the hospital, Wednesday and Thursday. Thursday night, they beat the Dallas Stars. I couldn't watch the game because apparently the hospital doesn't get the channel. But they beat the Dallas Stars Thursday night. And I said 1-0 in the life of Jack Stillman. Now, they lost Saturday, but they won yesterday 2-1. I'm hoping, just like last year, how the Predators season turned around because I went to St. Louis with them. I am hopeful that Jack Stillman can be the difference in the Nashville Predators season this year. So we're going to keep a running tally of how well they do since December 11th on, and we will go from there, which I'm actually pretty excited about as far as the Predators are concerned.
Yeah.
Yesterday's game was a fun game. Look, I think both teams kind of stink, and I'm surprised because I see the names of the players in the game, and I'm like, why do these teams stink? When Adam Wilsby is the first star in a game that features, guys like Igor Shesterkin and Steven Stamkos, etc. Like, that's something that I guess I'm not exactly ready for. But, hey, the Predators got a win. And the Rangers, there was a rumor that Laviolette was getting fired if they lost this game. So I guess Peter hasn't been fired. Good for him. They would be stupid to fire Laviolette. He's a great coach. But the Predators are clinging on for dear life the rest of the way. They'll play Pittsburgh tomorrow. Barry Trotz will join us on the program from Bridgestone Arena at 5 o'clock ahead of the Preds and Penguins. Meanwhile, Max is up next with Smashville Live at Brewhouse South in Cool Springs. Again, Adam Wilsby, the first star of the game, will be there. Kevin Gravel will be there. Enjoy that. That's coming up next. Stillman and Company. We'll see everybody tomorrow at 2.